Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Rinnegan Naruto hates his family and leaves Konoha. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Hatred, pain, loneliness, words he had known all too well through his life. These three words summed up all of the feelings that swallowed his pure heart. Naruto, the Dobi, the pariah, the demon. That's all he was to the people of Konoha. Sure, he had special people he cared about, but deep down he wondered if they truly did care. Kakashi was his Junin instructor, yet he seemed uninterested in teaching Naruto anything useful. Sakura was a bad case of one-sided infatuation that ended in nothing but a deeper pit of loneliness that engulfed him. Iruka, his academy instructor and close friend, was one of the few people who did care for him. However, he sometimes noticed the doubt that chipped away at his dear friend. Jiraiya, whether he would show it or not, had always been there for the boy since he met him, yet Jiraiya was often far too busy to do anything for him. Tsunade, the Hokage herself, was one of his most important people. She was his surrogate mother, and he knew she would always be there for him. As for the rest of Rookie 9, Naruto had serious doubts of their true feelings towards him. Finally, there was Sasuke. The boy was his good friend, but Naruto had always resented the boy deep down for his swift mastery over everything and him being a beacon of perfection for everybody. What made Sasuke so much better than him? Nothing, it would seem, seeing as how Naruto's Rasengan had defeated him. Naruto was fed up with the way he was treated in Konoha. Even upon defeating Sasuke, nobody thanked him or even acknowledged him for his feat. He began to become distant upon his return to Konoha. He sat in Team 7's training ground and began to boil in anger. Those few people that did care about Naruto were overshadowed by the 14 years of neglect and punishment inflicted on him by the citizens of Konoha. His hindrances from the academy instructors, his lack of training, and his lack of respect from his teammates sent him over the edge. Darkness flooded his vision and he felt a burning sensation over his entire body. His eyes felt like acid was being poured into them. Arrrrrrghhhh. He roared painfully as he fell to his knees. Suddenly a vision came to him. A man with golden, orange hair was standing over Konoha. He looked closely at this man, which could have resembled his older self, wearing a black robe with red clouds on it. The man had many piercings that covered his emotionless face. Suddenly, the man raised his hand and a huge explosion covered the entire city. A small smile marked the man's face as witnessed the devastation. The man began to chuckle at his handiwork, and soon became full-out laugh. As his laughter echoed throughout Naruto's mind, he soon heard the Kyuubi's demonic fox laughter join in. Naruto was then engulfed in the explosion. Naruto woke in an all-too-familiar flooded hallway and knew where he was. He followed the usual path to Kyuubi's prison, wondering if the fox was behind his strange meltdown. "Hey Fox, why don't you explain to me what's going on?" the boy demanded. Kyuubi came to the front of the cage to make eye contact with the boy and gave him an evil glare. "Your lack of respect is starting to irritate me, mortal. I am the great Kyuubi and you will address me as such." The giant fox snarled, pacing back and forth in his cage. Naruto merely shrugged off the fox's threat like it was nothing. "There must be some reason you brought me here then, because I don't willingly come here last I checked." The Kyuubi just slammed his head against the cage. "I simply wanted to talk to you about that pity party you were having before you passed out. Instead of wasting all of your energy trying to please people who obviously have no concern for you, I suggest you turn the tables." Naruto stared at the Kyuubi, confused. "What do you mean turn the tables?" The demon fox grinned at him in a strange way. "Instead of letting them walk all over you and waste your time for nothing, I suggest you harness your rage and let it fuel your ambitions." Kyuubi elaborated further, knowing the blonde genin wouldn't understand what he meant. "You could rule this world, kid, with all of the powers you have, but instead you let others beat you down and cling to some fairy tale notion that you'll be Hokage one day. They'll never accept you for Hokage over their precious Uchiha, or when that corrupt council is there. It's time to face the facts, kid. Become strong or live in your pathetic puddle of self-pity and misery." The Kyuubi's rant was something Naruto wasn't expecting. Deep down in the pit of his soul he knew the Kyuubi was right about everything. No matter how hard he worked to live by their doctrines and to please them, Konoha had no love for the blonde ninja. "What would you have me do, Kyuubi-sama?" the boy asked desperately. The fox was somewhat surprised by the complete change in attitude the boy seemed to take. Kyuubi laughed inwardly at the thought of Naruto killing people. Okay kid, I have great plans for you. First thing is you should leave this worthless village. As long as you remain here they will only hinder your potential with their pathetic misguided sense of morality. You mean leave and become bad? I'm not like that fox, I can't do that to other people. The Kyuubi interrupted him with a fierce roar, this is the real world. Everything worth having is something you have to fight for, to bleed for, to kill for. Naruto cringed over the red chakra flooding the room now. I can't leave, what would Tsunade say or Jiraiya? Kyuubi sighed, they won't be here forever, and when they're gone then what will be here for you? Naruto stood frozen for a minute, torn by conflicting feelings of anguish and the loyalty he held to his home. Finally he spoke up, I won't leave them behind and betray Konoha. The Kyuubi had a painfully annoyed look on his face, your ignorance to your untapped potential is disgusting. With those eyes of yours and my power combined you could become a living god. What do you mean by my eyes? Naruto questioned bitterly. The fox just laughed at him. Go live in your pathetic dream of love and acceptance a bit longer, eventually you will wake up. Naruto could only hear the Kyuubi's maniacal laughter as his vision went dark once again. He awoke in Team 7's training grounds where he had previously passed out. His entire body burned like he had slept in a fire. His vision was nothing but a blinding white light as he felt the acidic burning in his eyes once again. He blinked several times and felt the cool touch of rain pouring over his entire body. Slowly his vision was returning to normal. The rain soothed him and he just let it soak him to relax. Slowly the blonde got up and began to go over his conversation with Kyuubi in his head. I wonder what he meant by my eyes, the boy thought to himself as he slowly got up and walked past the bridge looking into his reflection in the water. From what he could make out from the rain splashing and rippling the water, his eyes were still his normal shade of blue. Then suddenly they began to turn purple. He gasped and fell back shocked by what he had just seen. He looked back into the water and they were blue again. Do I have some kind of dujutsu nobody else has? The blonde thought to himself as he began to walk home to his apartment. Along the way he passed the Konoha library which was closed for the night. Maybe it's worth looking into purple-eyed dujutsus, best I keep this to myself. No telling what the council would do if they found out I had a bloodline. Naruto snuck into the library with no trouble at all and turned on a light. He began to go through the shelves looking for anything relating to bloodlines or dujutsus. What's this shit? Sharingan, Uchiha, blah blah blah. Fuck the Sharingan, the blonde thought to himself. Then he stopped reading for a moment, somewhat shocked by his thought process. Why am I being so hostile? The boy thought to himself. After about an hour of uneventful skimming through bloodline books he sighed heavily. Maybe I'm just going crazy, the boy thought to himself. He put all the books back where he found them and accidentally knocked one off the shelf. He picked up the book reading the title, Rikudo Sennin, he said aloud to himself, opening the book curious about it. He found himself captivated by the contents of the book. It explained about the Sage of Six Paths who created ninjutsu and was known as the founder of the ninja world. That wasn't what caught his attention, it was also mentioned that the man was said to have possessed purple eyes with rings in them known as the Rinnegan. It was said to be the most powerful dujutsu ever known that could allow the user to master all 6 forms of chakra and so much more. Naruto didn't know what to think of what he had just read. It would be hard for him to believe somebody like him could be a descendant of the most powerful ninja in history. There's no way, it can't be true, I'm an orphan with no clan. How would this be possible? The blonde thought to himself. A voice rang in his head and it only took him half a second to know who it was. The pieces are beginning to fall in place. Soon you will begin to understand. Naruto pushed the voice out of his head and decided to continue home. It was late by this time, but his apartment was only a block away. He leapt over the rooftops to get there quickly and landed in front of his door. What a crazy day, the poor genin thought to himself as he collapsed soaked on his couch. He looked at his picture of Team 7 and stared at it. A tremor of rage washed over him and he suddenly threw it at the wall, shattering the frame to pieces. A single tear rolled down his face as he felt a sinking feeling in his heart. Everything I've done, for what? The boy thought to himself as he was flooded with flashbacks of his childhood running from mobs of angry villagers, and the painful beatings he would receive. Sarutobi the old man Hokage was the only thing that made the assault stop, but Naruto never forgot the horrors he'd experienced hiding on his birthday just to avoid the inevitable near-death experience he received once a year. Naruto finally fell asleep after long hours of anger and pain surfacing in him. He had the same dream again of the cloaked man destroying Konoha, but this time Naruto looked closely at the man. He had purple eyes with rings, the Rinnegan. Naruto woke to the warm sunlight bathing his still-soaked body. He took the time to get up and take a shower, trying to forget the terrible visions floating around in the back of his mind. He prepared his favorite meal as he decided on what he was going to do today. Maybe I should go see how Sasuke's doing in the hospital, he thought cheerfully, trying not to remember his dark feelings from the day before. As he made his way to the hospital, he was intercepted by none other Kakashi, who had a grim look on his face. He greeted Naruto with a serious tone. "Hey Naruto, good to see you're okay. I just got back from seeing Sasuke, he's in intensive care. You must have really messed him up in that fight." Naruto looked at him dumbfounded. "Intensive care? Seriously?" The masked Junin looked away from Naruto as he spoke quietly. "You had good intentions trying to bring him back. It was his own fault for forcing you to hurt him like that, but there is no telling how the council will take it. Apparently there was only one eyewitness, you are not going to like who it is either." Naruto had a serious look on his face and spoke. "Eyewitness? Am I in some kind of trouble with the council?" Kakashi looked dead serious and replied softly, "If Sasuke dies, you're going to be stripped of your ninja rank. And right now this eyewitness is saying you forced violence on Sasuke after he surrendered, and tried to execute him with a Rasengan." Naruto was shocked beyond belief. Shit just got real. Seems it was raining bad luck this week, he thought to himself as he asked, "Who is this eyewitness, Kakashi?" Said Junin looked down at the ground and spoke the name Naruto was dreading to hear. "Sakura?" "No, why her of all people?" The blonde thought to himself. That pink-haired Barbie bitch is going to get butchered and eviscerated. The Kyuubi's voice echoed in Naruto's head. Naruto looked pleadingly at his sensei. "Please tell me you don't believe her, Kakashi-sensei. You think I would purposely kill Sasuke?" Kakashi looked sad for the first time Naruto could ever remember, and he nearly shrugged. "I know you aren't the kind of person to do that, Naruto. But Sakura's side of the story will carry far more support than yours. Especially because of your predicament." The Junin took a moment before continuing. "Please don't blame her, she doesn't understand what this implies to the council. She would eat a Rasengan if I had my way, haha. Seriously though, kid. Walk away now before this shitstorm blows in your face." The fox laughed. Naruto looked at Kakashi one last time before leaving. "Well, take care, Kakashi-sensei, I'm going to see if I can sort this out." The masked ninja looked at him with waning hope. "Good luck, Naruto, though I doubt this is going to end well." Kakashi wandered away silently, wishing he could do more for his sensei's son. "If that kid gets out of this skirmish, I'm going to have to train him more." Kakashi thought to himself. Impressive that he beat Sasuke, though I doubt he knows what Sakura saw could only have scared her. Meanwhile, Naruto had just arrived at the hospital to find Sasuke in stable condition after Tsunade saved his life. Naruto walked in the room and was greeted with mixed stares from its inhabitants. Tsunade and Shizune had offered warm greetings to him, while Danzo, Sakura, and several unnamed council members glared at him as if he just killed their family. Danzo spoke up in his usual cocky, self-assured attitude. "What brings the criminal back to the crime scene, him?" Without even masking his pure malice at this man, Naruto simply replied, "I suggest you leave, old man, before you end up like him." Tsunade looked at Naruto, shocked that the happy-go-lucky blonde would threaten a counselor and the head of Root. "Your violent outbursts will only further diminish you in the eyes of your peers, who will all soon see you for what you really are," the old man smiled. "He's at the top of my hit list right now. Don't let that cocky bitch of a man tell you off like that, kid." Naruto looked at Danzo, knowing what he meant, and spoke darkly. "For somebody who's supposedly very smart, you chose the worst people to have as an enemy." Tsunade finally spoke up, interrupting their argument. "Enough, Danzo, you are dismissed. Naruto and I need to talk. All of you out now. You too, Sakura." The pink-haired Kunoichi was about to argue, but Tsunade gave her a death glare, so she walked out, but not before giving Naruto the most disgusting look of hatred he had ever seen. When they were alone, Tsunade looked over at Sasuke's body and then back at Naruto. "Do you know what you did to him, Naruto?" she questioned with a worried look on her face. Naruto merely nodded and relayed, I defeated him with a Rasengan at the Valley of the End, and hauled his ass all the way back to Konoha. Your Rasengan almost pierced his heart, and is being viewed as an attempted execution of Sasuke by the council. Sakura claims you were glowing red and had an evil look on your face. You making enemies of Danzo won't help your situation either. Tsunade explained. Naruto had only one thing to say, I'm fucked huh? Tsunade gasped at his language, not expecting this kind of response. This is only going to end one way if I wait, he said out loud to himself. Tsunade was staring at him, utterly confused now. I don't believe Sakura's bullshit, Naruto, but you can't deny that your attitude lately will lead many to believe it is true. Tsunade spoke sadly. Are you okay, Naruto? Is there anything you want to talk about? I'm here for you. Naruto was about to tell her about his dreams and the Rinnegan when Kyuubi shouted in his head, don't tell her about that, she wouldn't understand. For some reason, Naruto believed the fox had a decent point in this matter. Telling the Hokage that you were pissed off lately around the time of being charged with attempt to murder a teammate would be bad news. No, I'm fine, I'll see you tomorrow, Hokage-sama. The blonde spoke to the older woman who was trying to figure out the puzzle of Naruto's emotions. She knew he was hiding something, but there would be no point in trying to force it out of him. Tsunade then walked away, chugging down a bottle of sake she somehow acquired. Naruto walked over to Sasuke at his bedside and looked at the sleeping Uchiha, hoping he would be okay. He placed his hite, I think that's how you say it, by Sasuke's bedside, and he walks to the door only to be intercepted by our favorite pink-haired ninja. Come here to finish the job, Dobi. I hope the council takes away everything from you for almost taking away Sasuke-kun from me. Naruto just gave her a plain smirk and said quietly, I'm sick of you trying to justify reasons to hate me, Sakura. You're just like the rest of them. His eyes started burning again as he glared at her. She took a step back, fearfully regretting what she said. Naruto, what are you doing? She was beginning to whimper as his eyes were flashing different shades between purple, red and blue. She's number 2 on that hit list. I can think of 1,000 ways to end her worthless life. Kyuubi echoed once again. Naruto then just pushed her out of the way and walked down the hallway. She fell to the ground with tears in her eyes as he walked down the hallway and punched a random civilian in the face, knocking him out cold. I think I've overstayed my welcome, the blonde thought as he began to understand why Kyuubi was in a hurry for him to leave. Sooner or later some Anbu might take him into custody. He made his way to the northern gate. As he began to walk out, he was surprised to see the gate guards weren't at their posts. Assuming this was his one chance, he began to run for it out of the village. He made it a good way out and thought he was clear. About an hour or so of running later, he took a quick break to recollect his energy he would need to make the long journey to Wave Country to stay with some old friends. After a few minutes he began to set off again, but was blocked by somebody he was shocked to see. It's you, that Chunin exam instructor, Anko. The woman just stared at him with her normal playful attitude and smiled. Ah, he remembers me, been thinking of me lately, him cutie? Listen lady, I don't have time to be your bitch in these stupid mind games you like. So how's about you play hide and go fuck yourself while I leave? Anko giggled at him with a menacing smirk. That game is so boring unless there's 2 people involved. But anyways kid, where are you going all by yourself out of the village? Nothing that concerns you. I suggest you pretend you never saw me and maybe someday I could make it up to you. A wicked grin graced her features as she imagined older Naruto. Aren't you the Kyuubi kid? Won't all the elders freak out if you leave? She asked in a somewhat serious manner. Breaking the rules is fun, wouldn't you say, Anko-chan? Do me a favor and cover me and you can have whatever you want should we ever meet each other again. Anko then spoke empathetically. I know why you're leaving kid. Maybe one day I'll join you, but I am holding you to this deal of ours. Guess I'll see you around then, Anko. Naruto winked as he darted away. Anko licked her lips as she headed back to Konoha. The light of dawn shined once again over the new day in Konoha. A heavily hungover Hokage was freshly awake in her desk. She had fallen asleep on the night before. Tsunade was stressed out of her mind at the moment. First the Uchiha kid takes off, second Naruto nearly kills him and she has to spend all day saving his life, and finally Naruto was getting put on trial today for the attempted execution of Sasuke, which was just plain ridiculous. Sakura really didn't do her any favors by stirring up the council by telling them about Naruto's fight with Sasuke. She stared at her desk lost in thought. Red chakra. Why did Sakura have to tell them that? It would only translate as one thing to them, and that would be the Kyuubi is taking over the boy. It saddened her to think that people could be so heartless all because they were too afraid to see Naruto as a person. She glanced at the pile of paperwork on her desk she had failed to do the day before, and felt her head throb even worse. There is no way that's getting done today. I should go see Naruto and try to talk to him again about this council thing, he seemed so distant. I wonder what was wrong with him. The woman thought to herself, ashamed that she was too tired to get him to open up. A knock was heard at the door and Tsunade hoped it was Naruto. Come in. Sadly though, her hopes were diminished by the sight of Danzo at the door with a dead serious look on his face. Lady Tsunade, where is the boy? He demanded. She then felt a bit concerned by the way he was acting. I last saw Naruto in the hospital late afternoon yesterday right after you left. Why, what's happened? Danzo was pissed, judging by the way he was pacing in front of her desk glaring at her. The two Anbu I assigned to watch him are both dead, as well as 4 Northgate guards. Tsunade's eyes almost exploded out of their sockets. What? Danzo visibly tensed under the Hokage's angry outburst. They were all found slain in the Team 7 training grounds. All of them were killed by kunai to the heart with incisions on their cheeks. Here's the strange thing though, it looks as if they all killed themselves. Tsunade shivered at the thought of what that could mean. I have to see this for myself. Tsunade pushed past Danzo and hurried down to the tower and out to the forest where the crime scene was. As she arrived, she saw a dozen Anbu covering the perimeter and several Junin, as well as Jiraiya, all standing around the bodies. When she arrived, she noticed several medic nin examining the bodies. Jiraiya turned to her and spoke up. Whoever did this to these men is a genjutsu master. But it would have had to be something terrible to make them all kill themselves. Tsunade looked at the grisly scene in disgust as she turned to her former teammate. You have some kind of lead, I'm assuming. Jiraiya had a distressed look on his face and spoke up. Yeah, only one thing could do this to Chunin and Anbu. A Mangekyo Sharingan. Everybody at the scene instantly turned their gaze to Jiraiya as everything went silent. Suande knew exactly what that meant. So Itachi is behind this. Awkward silence filled the air once again at the mention of one of Konoha's #1 missing nins. One of the random Junin spoke up to everybody's surprise. Why would he kill random gate guards and Anbu? Danzo, who had recently just arrived to overhear Jiraiya's theory, replied, it's the fact that those Anbu were guarding the Kyuubi kid and now he's missing. Everybody was shocked except Tsunade, who already heard that news. Jiraiya muttered quietly, no, that can't be it. That would mean Itachi has kidnapped him. Danzo, being the asshole that he is, shot out his theory, that or the kid is a lot smarter than you all think. I wouldn't doubt if he was working for Itachi to kill Sasuke. My root agents have been investigating his movements since he brought Sasuke back, but what you all don't know is he had been sighted in these very same grounds the day before, and was seen breaking into the library that night. My agents went missing the night he went home. Not too long after I left, I heard a testimony from a civilian that he went on a rampage on his way out of the hospital the previous night, and gave the man a concussion. Jiraiya looked unconvinced by Danzo's accusation. Naruto wouldn't do things like that, it's just not in him. Tsunade and several other Junin, including Kakashi, who was also there, nodded in unison. I find it a little too convenient that he almost kills Sasuke and gets kidnapped the night before his trial with the council, Danzo retorted harshly. Joy and wonder soon graced the group of shinobi as none other than Sakura showed up and applied her 2 cents to the argument. He was acting different last night when I saw him in the hospital. He left his hite by Sasuke's hospital nightstand when he left, but not before assaulting me. And his eyes were changing colors from red to blue and purple. Danzo smiled at the girl and acknowledged her information. Yes, the same red eyes of the. Tsunade put her hand over Danzo's mouth and glared at him. Danzo, nobody breaks that law in front of low-level shinobi. Danzo pushed her hand away, merely smirked. What law? The pink girl whined. Kakashi broke into the little ring of wonder that was going on. You said he left his hite? Naruto would never do that, it means too much to him. I think this is obviously some kind of kidnapping set up to look like he went rogue. Danzo sighed at Kakashi for derailing his theory. There was unanimous agreement with Kakashi, seeing as how everybody knew the boy treasured his hite. That pink-haired girl just ruined my one chance to send Hunter Nin after the kid. Shit. Danzo thought to himself as he walked away without another word. He knew he could get the council to back him up fortunately. Sakura took her leave as well, saying she had to be by her Sasuke-kun's side. Tsunade turned to the Anbu and Junin present and told them to gather at the Hokage Tower for a Junin meeting. Everybody dispersed except the medic Nin disposing of the bodies and Jiraiya. The man looked at Tsunade with a worried look on his face. What would Itachi want with Naruto, do you think? The Hokage, taking another look at the bodies, sighed heavily. There's no telling, but he does know Naruto is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I wouldn't doubt if he had some kind of sick motive. Jiraiya looked over his former teammate who had a horrified look on her face. Tsunade-hime, you okay? The woman snapped back into her proper state of mind and replied quietly so the medics wouldn't hear. Something was wrong about him when I saw him last night. He wasn't his usual self. He threatened to kill Danzo, and he had this dark attitude. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at this. You're sure it was him and not some imposter? She looked at him like he was stupid. I can sense his chakra, no way that wasn't him. Meanwhile, said blonde was jumping through the trees at surprising speed. He had been running all night just in case anybody was hot on his trail. His inhuman stamina was a true gift to be proud of, he thought to himself as we wondered what he was going to do. Those people from Wave Country think I'm a hero. Maybe I'll stay with them for a bit till I figure out a plan. The former genin planned as he panted heavily from the long night of tree sprinting. You can't stay in one place for too long, or they'll find you. This will be a hotspot as soon as they find out you're missing. Heeding the fox's warning, Naruto started to plan ahead of Wave. Where could I go, Kyuubi? The demon fox simply answered with a question. Where does darkness reign? Naruto had no clue what that could mean, reign as in rule. Or rain as in fall. The fox just laughed in his head. Big help. Well, I guess I'll figure that out later. Anyways, can you teach me new jutsu, Kyuubi? The fox stopped laughing briefly and bluntly replied, Jutsu? Ha 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 ha, what do you think I am? Human? Naruto facepalmed at the fox's ridiculous demeanor. You seem to be in an awfully good mood. The blonde landed by the edge of the forest and walked on the path that lead across the great Naruto bridge. I forgot the name, lol, I think that's it. I can't directly teach you any jutsu, but I know a place where you could learn some. I just so happen to know the location of a hidden vault in this cave I used to live in. Conveniently, it has treasures I collected from idiot ninja over the years. It is protected by a powerful barrier I placed before I left, so I doubt anyone has found it. Naruto stopped halfway over the bridge looking into the water again. So you have a vault of everything I would ever want? How in the world would I learn any of it without a teacher? Suddenly Naruto's eyes began to burn again as he saw them change color in his reflection. With the power of the Rinnegan you can master ninjutsu in very short time, not to mention with your shadow clones the time it would take you master a jutsu would be like 5 minutes. The fox chuckled in his head. Naruto's eyes were now purple with rings in them. So this is the Rinnegan, huh? He said to himself more than Kyuubi. The fox spoke to him once again. I wouldn't suggest staying here. One of these blabbermouth idiots will go spouting off you have purple eyes and half of the shinobi world is going to send assassins after you. Why would the other nations send assassins after me? He inquired. Well, the cages might see you as a threat seeing as how you have the Rinnegan and would likely send nothing short of an army after you. How would I live if I can't ever be spotted anywhere? The blonde asked, irritated by the notion of living alone. The time will come when you reveal yourself and can usurp power to challenge the other nations. Until that time, we ride solo. Fine, but where is this cave of yours? The blonde asked curiously. Well, we are currently east of Fire Country. Mr. Unknown Uchiha killed the North Guards to throw the Konoha nen off of his tracks, on this bridge to Wave. If I remember correctly, it is northwest of the Valley of the End between Takigakure and Otogakure. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but the cave is hidden by a waterfall near the borders of Waterfall Country. For some kind of an all-knowing demon fox god, you sure do act like an old man. The blonde laughed as he began his long trek back through Fire Country. I came all this way and this stupid cave of yours is all the way northwest of Konoha? That's the complete opposite direction. Naruto yelled at the fox as he set off once again. He looked one last time at his eyes which were still purple as he silently walked away, not even glancing back at the village in Wave Country which was within viewing distance. He sighed at the mental image of him covering Fire Country again, risking his discovery. 1 week later in a hospital room, a certain raven-haired Uchiha woke in shock. Where am I? His voice stirred a pink-haired girl from her sleep who was lying on a chair next to his bed. Sasuke glared at Sakura, not wanting to ever see her face again. Shit, Naruto must have brought me back. The Uchiha sat up, much to the disapproving whining sounds he heard coming from Sakura. Sasuke-kun, you're hurt, don't sit up, you need your rest. He wondered if he actually was killed and woke up in hell as he stared at her with pure disgust. The boy looked down at his chest and saw a lot of padded wrappings around his chest. Guess his Rinnegan hit me, but how? I had a fully developed Sharingan, I would have seen it. Sasuke was lost in thought, thinking of his blonde friend, completely tuning out everything Sakura was saying. Then to his mighty rescue, Danzo, Tsunade, and 2 Anbu walked in to greet him. "Ah, Sasuke-san, it is good to see you're alive," Danzo said in his normal weasel manner. Sasuke told the guy to fuck off with his eyes and looked at Tsunade for a minute and asked, "Where's Naruto?" Sakura shouted at this comment, "Who cares, he almost killed you. He's gone, Sasuke, it's for the best." Sasuke just felt like tearing her lame pink hair out for insulting his only friend. "You have no room to insult him, bitch, he's my friend," Sasuke stated coldly as he stood up and made eye contact with Tsunade, waiting for an answer. She had a distressed look on her face and spoke sadly, "He's missing, Sasuke. We have no idea what happened to him. Some think it's a kidnapping, while others believe he went rogue. Either way, the council has authorized the use of Hunter Nin to bring him in, alive or dead." Tsunade had a defeated look on her face, clearing, indicating that the council had favored Danzo's theory over Jiraiya's. Sasuke looked pissed at the thought of Naruto bringing him back just to go rogue. "He left his Ite by your nightstand before he disappeared," Danzo added. Sasuke's Sharingan flared as he heard this. Tsunade handed the forehead protector to Sasuke, who stared at it fiercely. "Why don't you fill me in on why you think this is a kidnapping?" the raven-haired boy requested. Tsunade took several minutes to explain the situation to Sasuke as she stared out a window. Sasuke spoke up after she was finished. "That definitely sounds like a Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi used that on me before he left." He received wide-eyed stares from the inhabitants in the room, especially Danzo. "He wouldn't go rogue. Your theory is full of shit, Danzo. Itachi has taken him." Sasuke yelled at the old man, who seemed rather confused that the Uchiha would defend somebody who almost killed him. "Why are you defending him, Sasuke?" Tsunade asked in a sincerely curious way. Is my best and only true friend," the raven-haired boy said as he seemed less interested in his surroundings and was lost in thought. "What about Sasuke-kun?" the pink-haired girl whined annoyingly. He just looked at her for half a second and started to walk out of the room. As he walked past Danzo and reached the door, the man spoke up. "Don't try looking for him, or even think of leaving this village, because I got you under a full squad of Anbu surveillance. I want this guy to die," he thought to himself as he didn't even bother with a response. Then once again to his annoyance, Sakura blocked his path with tear-filled eyes. "Why don't you like me?" she sobbed pathetically. "I don't like weak people, and I hate the color pink," Sasuke answered honestly, internally laughing at the look on her face. He was under house arrest, so the only thing he could do was go home and train. Back with our favorite Jinchuriki, Naruto had made surprising progress through Fire Country undetected and was nearing on the cave Kyuubi spoke of. He was currently in a small camp he set up briefly. He had a pretty eventful week as he ran through several towns stealing supplies he needed and even managed to find some orange dye that matched the exact color of Kyuubi's fur. "That's so good of my little kid to want to be just like me," Kyuubi mentioned as he began dyeing his hair orange. "I figure I'll need a new identity if I'm a missing nin and all. So if I have different hair and eyes, they won't think it's me. Well, unless they get a good look at my whisker marks." He thought to himself, cursing his own logic. "You idiot, it won't matter, because we're going to be spending a lot of time in that cave." The blonde started dyeing his hair, much to the Kyuubi's amusement. As he finished, he let it soak in for a few minutes. "In the running stream, I have to live in some stupid cave for how long exactly?" he inquired painfully. "Well, that depends on how fast you learn all the bullshit ninja junk I saved. I knew there was a good reason for keeping those scrolls after I killed that one town." The fox drifted off into a nervous chuckle as he changed the subject. "It's way better than you're going to expect. just trust me on that one kit. Naruto began to pack up his camp and made his way downriver. You're going to want to keep an eye out for twin waterfalls and a huge stone boulder in between them. Once we reach it, use my chakra. He searched for what seemed an hour for this stupid boulder, receiving fake praise from the Kyuubi for being a master of awareness. Finally, after passing through a shaded forest, he found the waterfall at the split of the river. About time, kid. Okay, now use this chakra. Naruto felt the familiar red chakra cover his body as he walked through the boulder. As he walked through the large cavern, he imagined Kyuubi squeezing through the chamber. It was fairly large, but not extravagant or anything. He kept following the trail and finally came upon an open field with grass, water, and piles upon piles of priceless items, food, and scrolls. Strangely though, it had an open sky above it, as well as super high cliffs surrounding it. Where are we? He said out loud to himself. Welcome to the Fox Den, kid. My treasure is stacked over that ninja vault in here. How has nobody found it with an open sky above it? It was a barrier I placed a long time ago, somewhat like what you would call genjutsu. The now orange-haired ninja looked around in disbelief. This is too good to be true. Now you see why I kept telling you to leave, but no, you had to go all emotionally compromised on me, hey. Anyways, the good news is you're here now. The purple-eyed boy went to the scrolls immediately and read the first one, Wind Mastery Techniques. Somehow right then the blonde knew he was going to like it here. A black-cloaked man with red clouds stalked his latest target for Akatsuki. The man wore a Konoha headband with a slash through it, symbolizing that he was a missing nin. The dark-haired man had a deadly look on his face as his red eyes traced the footprints of the Jinchuriki. Strangely though, he followed it all the way to some waterfall and then the trail simply vanishes. Itachi was frustrated. The trail went blank after all the trouble he went through to get the Kyuubi container out of the city undetected. Something's different about this one, almost like it knew we were following it, he thought to himself as he stared at the rather ordinary waterfall splitting two ways. A second man walks up behind Itachi with an eager face for good news. The Uchiha simply states, he just disappeared, not even my Sharingan can find any trace of his escape or any kind of concealment. The second man was known as Kisame, one of the former 7 swordsmen of the mist. The man spoke up in a carefree way. Don't worry about it, Itachi-sama, we'll find the kid somewhere in this country. Maybe that was a shadow clone. Itachi looked completely unconvinced. This one isn't like the others, Kisame, he's cunning. I had heard tales of the Kyuubi's mastery in deception. The fox isn't like the other tailed beasts, it is patient and scheming, indomitable. It is impossible to control the fox, somehow it must have been aiding Naruto. The shark man gave Itachi a surprised look. Seems strange the Biju is helping its container. The rest of them tried to dominate their Jinchuriki's mind. Itachi glanced at him briefly, answering him. Well, besides the seal the 4th Hokage placed on him, there are other reasons why that might happen. None of them are good. Obviously, Naruto has something beneficial to the Kyuubi in the long run. Kisame shrugged in confusion, not fully aware of what Itachi meant. The Jinchuriki is the 4th Hokage's son and most likely inherited the bloodline of the Namikaze. Not sure if it's an actually bloodline, but for this story it is Kathexbai, the Flying Thunder God technique. Kisame sighed in frustration. Another yellow flash. With the Kyuubi inside him? Great, this kid will be tough to catch if he can teleport, let alone take down. Itachi narrowed his gaze into a distant glare. He's also the last surviving member of the Uzumaki clan, and that is also problematic. They were wiped out for a reason. Kisame thought out loud for a moment, never heard of the Uzumaki clan before. Itachi replied blankly, I never had either until I started reviewing confidential secrets in Black Ops when I was in Anbu. They were from Whirlpool Country, which is now known as the Land of Waves. No clue about it, so just roll with my version. The clan had 2 bloodlines, one was unnatural longevity. They have inhuman stamina and chakra capabilities, making them dangerous during long fights. Kisame smiled at the mention of inhuman chakra. The other bloodline was a very dangerous seal placed on every member, giving them the ability to do something known as chakra weaving. The seal would kill any normal person without the super stamina and chakra the clan possessed. To top off the danger they posed, they were also masters of fuinjutsu. Sealing. Kisame began pacing as Itachi sat down on a nearby rock, distant in thought. So Itachi-sama, what the hell is chakra weaving? The Uchiha looked over at him silent for few moments. I'm not sure to be honest, but I hear it allowed them to combine elemental jutsu as well as infuse their own bodies with certain elements. Naturally, it was too powerful to leave unchecked, so Kiri, Iwa, and Kumo decided to join forces to take it out. Anbu Black Ops from Konoha helped Whirlpool, but it got overwhelmed and the clan wiped out. The dirt was swept was under the rug after that, and nobody even remembers the clan unless they either knew a member or worked for Anbu. Kisame started laughing. Okay, so let me get this straight. This kid is the last surviving member of two powerful clans. He is the Kyuubi's container, and he the Yellow Flash's son? Itachi sighed as he nodded his head. How the hell could this get worse? Next thing you know, he'll magically spawn a Rinnegan. Sick irony for you, Kisame, lol. Why the fuck did we volunteer for the Nine Tails then? If that kid discovers his bloodlines, he won't be easy to capture like the others. Itachi stared at the streaming river, tuning out Kisami's ranting. Maybe, something good could come of this. Maybe he could be the one to kill him. Kisame stared awkwardly at Itachi, shocked to see the man showing a hint of doubt as he gazed at the ground. Itachi-sama seems distressed by something. Now that's a sight to see. Without another word, Itachi stood up and glanced over at the waterfalls. Let's go back to Wave. He must have gone there for a reason, Kisame suggested. Itachi nodded at him and the pair continued on their way. The Uchiha looked back and wondered just how Naruto had eluded him. Why did we have to volunteer for the smart Jinchuriki? That fox must be helping him hide somehow. Madara won't like this setback at all. Meanwhile, back in Konoha, a certain purple-haired Kunoichi was sitting at her favorite dango restaurant with her fellow Junin friends. This wonderful circle of friends included Kakashi, Yamato, Kurenai, Asuma, Shikaku, and Inoichi. The group was sitting at a back table in the restaurant discussing the events of the Valley of the End battle leading up to Naruto's disappearance. Anko remained surprisingly quiet, thinking about Naruto as the conversation went on. Our favorite silver-haired Junin spoke up. I found it impressive that he defeated Sasuke despite his lack of training. A few nods followed this statement until Shikaku spoke up. He was receiving training from Lord Jiraiya, so it doesn't seem that strange to me. Yamato shook his head for a moment, adding, not as much as you would think, Jiraiya is always busy. I hear he mastered a jutsu developed by the fourth Hokage, Kurenai stated. A surprising nod of agreement came from Kakashi. Yes, I found it very inspirational that my sensei's son mastered the Rasengan his father created. Yamato's eyes shot wide at his comment, shocked Kakashi would openly state that well-kept secret. The entire group had looks of confusion and disbelief on their faces. Inoichi bluntly retorted, there's no way, are you saying Naruto is the fourth's son? Anko's daydreaming snapped back to the conversation, intrigued by the juicy information flying around. Asuma laughed out loud, I knew it. Everyone awkwardly stared at him for his random outburst. He looked at them all for a minute before asking, what? What's with the stares? You guys seriously didn't notice the resemblance? Kurenai skeptically replied, the fourth Hokage was the best ninja Leaf has ever had, kind of hard to imagine Naruto as his son. Yamato interjected, you haven't seen him lately, Kurenai-san. He's powerful for a genin. Anko decided to spice up the conversation a bit. He's a deviant waiting to happen. If he looks anything like his father when he grows older, then you might want to stake your claim now, before I do. Everyone at the table visibly tensed at the thought of Anko trying to seduce Naruto. Anyways, it's so obvious he's the fourth's son. Have you people looked at their hair? Or the eyes? Shikaku mentioned, trying to break the awkward silence that followed Anko's comment. Asuma smiled at the mental comparison. I knew it. Huh, and you guys couldn't figure that out on your own? Inoichi scowled at him. Well, I had thought about it once, but Ino told me he was the dead last academy student and I figured there was no way. Kakashi changed the subject as he went into his more serious tone. I heard from Sakura that their fight was devastating. It tore up the Valley of the End. She said it could have resembled the fight between Madara and the Shodai Hokage. Shikaku inquired curiously, do elaborate on what she said? I've heard different stories from the elders and the Hokage. The group all stared at Kakashi awaiting an answer. He sighed heavily. Her story is actually correct except for the part about Naruto trying to kill Sasuke. Not any logic in that. Why would we bring the Uchiha back then? Yamato hung his head dejectedly. So it's true, he used the Kyuubi's chakra to defeat Sasuke's cursed seal? Kakashi nodded. Odd looks graced the features of the other Junin present. Asuma had a distressed look at the mention of Kyuubi's chakra. How is that even possible? Doesn't that seal on him prevent it? Yamato answered, much to everyone's surprise. His seal was designed to allow him to use the Kyuubi's powers. Minato wanted his son to at least get something out of bearing the burden of being a Jinchuriki. Since the Kyuubi is vastly more powerful and intelligent compared to the other Biju, the seal isn't perfect and he had fail-safes in place just in case he reached 8 tails. He also taught me how to reseal him should the necessity ever arise. Wow, the group said in unison. Even Kakashi was surprised by this information. Strange how nobody can keep a secret in a village full of ninja. Out of nowhere a blonde-haired woman walked into the restaurant and pulled up a chair. Hokage-sama, we were just... Yamato was cut off by Tsunade. So you guys having a slumber party in here or what? Anko laughed as the Hokage continued. Now can somebody explain to me what was wrong with Naruto when he brought back Sasuke? That was kind of out of the blue, Asuma mentioned. The Hokage was awaiting an answer and finally Kakashi replied, I am not sure, Hokage-sama. But I know something was different about him because he had this distant look on his face. Kurenai looked at Tsunade asking cautiously, do you know about Naruto's family? The older woman glared at her before answering, yes I do. His father was a hero, and so is he. Kurenai frowned, clearly not satisfied with the answer. I mean his ancestry, relatives, mother? The group stared at the Hokage eagerly awaiting a response. Unfortunately for them, his mother was one of the best guarded secrets in all of Konoha. That's classified, and if you guys keep openly discussing classified information then you might end up spending a few days with Ibiki down in interrogation and torture. The group all shuddered at the thought of hanging out with the sick masochist and sadist that was Ibiki. Has there been any news from Anbu or the hunter squad sent after Naruto? Asuma asked. Tsunade thought for a moment and answered, yes, there was one lead. It went all the way to Wave Country, but then it disappears. There is also a few people in the northeastern villages who said they saw a blonde-haired boy quickly passing through their town. Right now that could only mean 3 things. 1. He escaped his kidnapper and is on the run. 2. It was just some other blonde kid. And 3. Tsunade trailed off with a painful look on her face. She tried to finish the sentence but couldn't as she felt a lump in her throat. Kakashi finished for her. 3. He went rogue and is now a missing nin. Shocked faces met the statement. He left his Hite Ite though, and he disappears the night before the council had accused him of attempted execution of Sasuke. Shikaku stated the obvious, clearly upsetting Tsunade more. Suddenly, as if he had been summoned, Sasuke walked in the restaurant and sees the large gathering of older shinobi. I wonder what that's all about. He thought to himself as he walked over to the Hokage as if he wanted something. Tsunade turned to meet his cold, distracted gaze. Is there something you needed, Sasuke? The boy stood silent for a moment. I was wondering if I could check Naruto's apartment, and if you could find a way to get these Anbu from breathing down my neck every time I take a piss. Tsunade thought for a moment about his request. It wasn't unreasonable to let him see Naruto's apartment, but she had no choice in the matter pertaining to his curfew and his nighttime house arrest. You did just try and leave Konoha, Sasuke. Nobody is letting you out of their sight until you regain some trust and prestige. As for the apartment thing, I don't mind, just let me know what you discover. The Uchiha nodded and left without even greeting the Junin present. That student of yours sure seems odd, Kakashi-kun, Kurenai remarked. Inoichi nodded in agreement. Yeah, he seems awfully obsessed with somebody who just kicked his ass. I thought he and Naruto hated each other. Kakashi just stared at Sasuke's back as the boy left the restaurant. Nope, they were good friends. And their rival personalities complemented each other well. The others merely waved it off without another thought. I wonder why he wants to see Naruto's apartment, Anko asked, puzzled by the Uchiha. Tsunade answered promptly, he's looking for clues most likely. Sasuke was about half a block down the street before a thought crossed his mind. If he did leave, he would leave me clues. This headband is one of them. He's trying to tell me something. He noticed the strange look he was getting from the citizens he passed by. They were staring, always staring. Being the last Uchiha was something he had to live up to, or be doomed to forsaking his clan's name forever. His mind lingered on the thought of Itachi capturing Naruto, but he had doubts that it was the whole story. Maybe he finally realized the truth: him and I are both victims to the atrocities of this corrupted village. The raven-haired boy made his way down several back roads and finally found Naruto's apartment. He jumped up the stairs and went to the end door. Strange how nobody else lives in this building. As he made his way to the door, he saw it busted open and sighed. Looks like Anbu, or the hunters scoured the place for ways to track him. He walked inside and saw the entire living room ripped to shreds. He stared at it rather shocked. Besides the destruction of the room, he noticed one thing in particular that bothered him. That picture frame is shattered. Somebody must have thrown it. I wonder if Naruto did. Sasuke walked over to the shattered frame and picked up the picture of his team and stared at it for a minute. You left, didn't you, Naruto? He thought to himself, piecing together in his mind what could have happened. He put the picture down and started walking away. This place is stripped of anything that could possibly lead to him. Wait, is that a book? Sasuke noticed a book on the ground and picked it up. Rikudo Sennin, he read out loud, interested in why Naruto would have a book like this. He flipped open to a place with a bookmarker. He read the lines of the page. The immortal soul is written in a storm of blood as the truth unravels once again. Seduced by the taint of darkness, the power surging in his heart is born of pain. The darkness that reigned upon his life will be reborn from his wrath, destroying all in its path. As the world goes black, the glow of his eyes will shine eternally. They witnessed the rebirth of life and delivered the retribution of death, blinded by pain and suffering, but awakened to the true nature of the world. The raven-haired Uchiha stared at the book, disturbed to find Naruto had been reading the strange contents. This is some heavy shit right here. I can't let the others find out or they'll assume the worst. Sasuke took a moment to try and understand the meaning of the passage. The darkness that reigned upon his life will be reborn from his wrath. That means vengeance. He stared at the book for a moment longer before deciding what to do with it. I must keep it. Maybe some kind of hidden message will lead me to where Naruto has gone, the Uchiha thought as he carefully hid the book, praying no Anbu were watching. He left the apartment and headed home so he could study the book more in privacy. Back in the fox den, Naruto had been going through rigorous jutsu mastering over the past few weeks as he deciphered scrolls and practiced techniques with his shadow clones. Every night he was haunted by dreams of the evil cloaked man, who by this point he had come to realize was himself, or what he could become. The corruption power promised was doing sick things to his subconscious mind. Adding to the fact Kyuubi was part of it didn't make it any easier to resist. So far he had discovered a wide variety of elemental jutsus and studied the important ones. Still though, even with all the scrolls that the fox had somehow acquired, the boy couldn't be quenched of his thirst for knowledge by simple elemental jutsus. No, he needed something terrible. Is there anything besides all of these jutsus? Some kind of super technique would help in case the guys who were hot on my ass decide to show up when I leave. I have no clue what's on those stupid pieces of paper. I only know where they're all from. I do remember that the ones with the spiral on them are Whirlpool Village scrolls. It was a nice village before burning to the ground. The fox laughed maniacally. You really are one sick fuck, Kyuubi, Naruto criticized. The giant fox snarled in response. They were a bunch of peace lovers who squandered their power. They had it coming if you ask me. It's like I keep telling you time and time again, only the strong survive. Those who can't exploit their superiorities over others are fools who will all die. Naruto walked over to a stack of scrolls with spirals on them and opened one up. Chakra weaving? What the hell? He began to frantically read over the scrolls in an attempt to decipher what it was. He finally found what he had been looking for, though he wasn't expecting the contents. Uzumaki clan seal. A seal placed upon the young members of the Uzumaki clan that possess the inherited bloodline of longevity and massive chakra. The seal allows the clan member to forge chakra and combine elemental jutsus. It can temporarily infuse one with the elements, allowing them advantages in stealth, defense, and amplifies elemental jutsus. Holy shit, Kyuubi, why didn't you mention this before? Chakra weaving is a unique technique only the Uzumaki clan could do. The reason for that is because it requires massive amounts of chakra and the clan seal, which allowed the user to manually manifest their chakra in different forms. So say for example you combine a fire jutsu with a wind jutsu. You could devastate people with burning wind. Oh, it's such a beautiful technique. Only made better by infusing weapons with multiple elements. I'm part of the Uzumaki clan, so I could weave chakra as well, right? The orange-haired boy asked. Yes, but there is a downside to your reasoning. I have no clue how they did the seals. You might be able to find clues at the ruins of Uzushiogakure village hidden among the whirling tides. Where is Whirlpool Country exactly? The Jinchuriki asked. The demon fox was silent for a moment before finally answering. Whirlpool Country is currently known as Wave Country ever since the Uzumaki clan was wiped out. The boy held his head in shame. Who wiped them out? The fox laughed in his head, delighting in the future consequences the villages would face. Iwa, Kiri, and Kumo all led an integrated assault on them out of desperate fear of the growing power the clan had. If it had been a part of one of the so-called Great Five Shinobi nations, then it might have survived. How is it that you know so much, Kyuubi? I mean about ninja and politics and whatnot. Kyuubi didn't answer him at first but finally broke the silence. I have been around for a long time, and tend to be in the right place at the right time to know about everything that goes on in my territory. Naruto accepted his answer and proceeded to finish examining the Uzumaki scrolls. It says here that the seal can only be learned at the Temple of Whirling Tides. Apparently they were big on tradition. You know, there is something else I thought you should know too, about your Rinnegan. It is not just an amped-up version of the Sharingan, but also serves other purposes. It gives you power over life and death. With it you can resurrect people and dominate their wills through the paths of pain. This would allow you to control multiple bodies. That's all a bit too deep for me, Kyuubi. The fox sighed as he elaborated further. You can kill powerful foes and raise them to serve you. Bestowing a gift of pain upon them allows you to implant your will into them, giving you the power to control their actions. However, when you don't directly control them, they can retain their own minds but do as you order unquestionably. Shit, no wonder people are terrified of the Rinnegan. How'd I bestow the gift of pain? A laugh could be heard echoing in his mind. By becoming pain and sharing it with those who have earned of the gift, you'll know what to do when the time comes. You and your fucking riddles are killing me, damn fox. Naruto fell to the ground and gazed at the sky, relaxing as his shadow clones ran around him, busy working through scrolls, practicing taijutsu, or working on building him a semi-decent living space with the junk the pack rat fox had laying all over the area. After finishing with their specified tasks, he simply dispelled them. After a while he felt an insane amount of exhaustion wash over him as he faded into unconsciousness. The dream was different, the same man, except this time the man was destroying Kumogakure, Cloud Village. The Raikage jumped in front of him to stop the destruction, and yelled, "Hirishin," sparking electric needle. A bolt of lightning flashed from the raining sky and hit the Raikage's arm as he charged a super-powered bolt at the man. It flew at the man with incredible speed but stopped short. Shinra Tensei. Divine judgment, I think. Suddenly the projectile bolt of lightning soaked into an invisible shield that surrounded the man, and then it reflected back at the Raikage threefold, who could only watch in horror as he felt the burning sting of electricity hit him. His body twitched wildly as he tried to stand up. The cloaked man with the Rinnegan spoke to the injured Raikage. Your power wanes, old man, and soon your death shall only further complement the undeniable truth that you are all nothing before me. The Raikage coughed up blood as he looked into the ringed purple eyes full of anger. You're just some kind of sick freak. The nations will never surrender to you. Cough, rivers of blood won't bring you peace or dominance. I'll be a martyr for standing against you. They'll speak my name for centuries to come. The cloaked man smiled and responded appropriately. Your name shall be stricken from history as I paint the ashes of your village with your blood. A storm is coming, my storm, and when it arrives it shall erase every pathetic ideal you hold dear to your heart. The Raikage looked horrified as he stared at the man. The cloaked man paced back and forth, turning his back to the defeated Cage. Your power-obsessed monster. I only wish I could be there to see you fall. The cloaked man turned around and closed hand backfisted him in the face, knocking him to the ground with tremendous force. Another hero falls, he mocked as he went through several hand seals and his hands charged with different elements, one fire and the other wind. He swirled them together in a harmonic rhythm as the two were both surrounded by a vortex of fire. The rain came down faster and lightning was striking the vortex, adding to its devastating force. The defeated Cage cried out in horror as the cloaked man grabbed his neck and pulled him close, Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The vortex spiraled closer together and finally sucked the wreckage in the burning gale winds that tore him to pieces. The man began to laugh as fiery hurricane destroyed everything in its path. It flew at Naruto and the outline of a dragon leapt out from it at him and swallowed him whole. Somewhere within the northern borders of Fire Country, two mysterious cloaked men were making their way east. As they passed beneath a large tree, a third figure silently leapt from the tree above and landed in front of them. "Zetsu tells me you lost the 9 tails." A cloaked man with a spiraled mask looked upon the two missing nin before him. Kisame looked shocked to see Toby in a serious mood, using a deadly tone of voice on the duo compared to his normal careless idiotic attitude. Toby began to pace around them as he began to laugh to himself. "So this one escaped you, Itachi? You always have held such promise, but that Jinchuriki is a genin from what I understand. You disgrace me. Such a waste, and here I thought I was going to name one of my kids after you. Still though, I find it peculiar that you didn't apprehend him at the village in the first place." The masked man was glaring at Itachi, his one red eye visible through the hole in the mask. Itachi sighed. "I didn't think it would have been a good idea to alert the entire city of Konoha that we were after Jinchuriki. Jiraiya was present in the city at the time, and would have free leave to come snooping if he discovered our purpose. I created a diversion which allowed the kid a day's journey to escape after he left the city. We followed him to Wave Country, but for some reason he turned around and went back through Fire Country. We eventually made it to the edge of Takigakure's territory, Waterfall Country, and his trail disappeared at this waterfall we encountered. No footprints, no chakra signature, not even a single clue. The Uchiha was looking down, avoiding his leader's one visible soul-piercing eye. There is a flaw in your tactics. I wonder about Kisame's role in all of this? You should have intercepted him halfway down the road after he left the city." The former swordsman of the mist merely shrugged. "I was awaiting Itachi-sama to rejoin me, Toby. There was this Junin patrolling as well, and Itachi ordered me to remain undetected. Plus I didn't see any reason in alerting the kid he was being followed until we had a viable way to subdue the 9 tails if it transformed. I wouldn't stand much of a chance in any attempt at taking down the 9 tails alone. Not to mention, what gives you the right to make demands of us, Toby?" The masked leader merely stared at him for a few moments. He redirected his focus to Itachi, awaiting some kind of answer. The Uchiha spoke up. "Madara-sama. His logic is unquestionable. The 9 tails is much more powerful than the other Biju. Without my Amaterasu, I am pretty sure that's one of his Sharingan eyes. It would be near impossible to subdue it." Kisame remained silent, shocked to find out Toba's true identity. He held his head down, avoiding eye contact with Madara. The man now identified as Madara merely laughed to himself. "Yes, I remember that fox quite well. It was my favorite weapon." The two kneeling cloaked men shot confused looks at their leader. Kisame finally asked, "You've encountered it before then?" Madara took off his mask, much to the surprise of Kisame. His face looks exactly as it did from his statue, not aged one day. Kisame was surprised as he stared at the strangely captivating face of his leader. "Who do you think unleashed it on Konohagakure in the first place?" Madara asked rhetorically, smiling slightly as his Sharingan changed focus to Itachi, meeting his Sharingan with a dangerous, painful stare. Itachi was entranced in a sea of blood and felt pain over every square inch of his body. "You can't resist the domination of my eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. No mortal or even Biju can deny my indomitable will, not even Kyuubi. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is the pinnacle of not only Uchiha perfection, but human perfection." Itachi finally closed his eyes as they began to bleed, and he held his head down in submission. Madara laughed at this as he leaned over and pulled Itachi's face to meet his gaze once again. "I find your pitiful resistance most amusing. Your Sharingan pales in comparison to mine. Never forget your place, Itachi. Remember who taught you the true meaning of the Sharingan and the Uchiha." Itachi tried to close his eyes again as blood continued to pour from them. Madara smiled at the younger Uchiha as his hands slipped around Itachi's neck and suspended him in the air. "Do you not appreciate everything I have given you?" Madara asked as a sick smile crossed his face. Itachi quietly submitted. "Yes, Madara-sama, you are my savior and my life is yours." Kisame looked up finally with a wide-eyed glance. "I've never seen anybody manhandle Itachi-sama like that. Shit, I can't believe Tobi is that powerful. Madara looked back over to Kisame as he dropped Itachi, who fell to his feet. Madara laughed to himself once again, watching Kisame's eyes nearly explode as he punched Itachi to the ground. I hope you learned a valuable lesson in obedience today. I trust you will keep your mouth shut about my identity, Kisame? The shark man bowed his head in tribute. Good, now go you two, I have different plans for the boy. Bring the Nine Tails Jinchuriki before me, for it shall require a subtle approach to defeat him. Don't fail me again. Without another word, the man put his mask back on and disappeared from sight. Itachi stood up painfully and stared at his partner for a moment. Kisame looked at him lost in thought before he finally spoke. I think that deserves an explanation. Is he, the Uchiha Madara? Itachi wiped his blood-soaked face briefly before answering. Yes. He is the founder of the Uchiha clan, and the only known person to have ever mastered the Sharingan. It made him immortal, and gave him great power. Kisame looked shocked at the news. That must mean, he's the most powerful ninja alive. What was he talking about? What did he give you? Itachi held his head dejectedly. That's a story for another time. Just don't tell the others. Kisame nodded as the two began to regain their composure. So, what should we do now? The swordsman asked. We should continue to Wave Country and lay a trap for the fox. The two continued their journey without another word. Kisame occasionally stole glances at his superior, distressed to see the different emotions plaguing Itachi. I've never seen Itachi so submissive. He never shows emotion, so that must make this some kind of super bad omen. Itachi was ignoring the curious glances Kisame was shooting him as they continued to walk. He's invincible. There is no point in even resisting him anymore. Memories were rushing through Itachi as he tried to contemplate how he ended up working for Konoha's arch-enemy. The promise of power, it has brought me nothing but pain and suffering. So much death, nothing ever changes. So long as the Mangekyo Sharingan exists, its evil shall be a perversion of our clan, forcing us to kill our friends and family all in the name of glory and power. Itachi was lost in his mind, reliving moments of his life, trying to make sense of his situation. How did I end up here? I killed my best friend Shisui to gain these cursed eyes, which will eventually fail me. I killed my entire clan under orders from Konoha. My own brother thinks I'm the bad guy. He didn't deserve the life he had, but then again neither did I. He won't be able to handle the truth. The two missing nin continued walking, not really in any hurry. Kisame broke the Uchiha's brooding. Itachi-sama. I was wondering something. Why does Tobi want Biju anyways? Pulled away from his inner reflections, Itachi casually answered him. He told me that they are all weapons of great power that we can use to attack villages and later defeat in order to establish dominance over the shinobi nations and their governments. Kisame shrugged at his answer, clearing unsatisfied. If he's as powerful as you say, why would he need us to gather these tailed beasts? Do you think he has some kind of other plan for them? Itachi knew deep down that Madara was using Akatsuki's goals to his own ends, but speaking on them wouldn't get him any closer to killing Madara. I try not to question his intentions, and neither should you unless you care to join me in his next lesson of obedience. Kisame laughed at the thought of Tobi beating him up. Meanwhile, somewhere in a dark room in the Uchiha compound, barely lit by a candle, Sasuke began to review more contents of the book he had found in Naruto's apartment. Despite his academy-based understanding of the Sage of Six Paths, Sasuke was not prepared for some of the dark messages within the actual book. He read the contents of the last chapter, which was a logistical commentary from several known shinobi experts. He read quickly, trying to learn more about this mysterious hero. The Sage of Six Paths was a real person despite what the teachings of modern-day shinobi would claim. His feats were so extraordinary that many assumed them to be tall tales and fables. According to legend, he was the only known person to wield the Rinnegan, a Dujutsu descendant from a bloodline that was believed to be from the gods themselves. He also was the Jinchuriki of the mighty Ten Tails. The mythic powers of the beast may seem impossible to the scholars of today to comprehend, but in ancient times of the first prehistoric shinobi clans, feared the beast and it was worshipped. The Sage of Six Paths eventually sealed the monster within himself with the mighty power of his Rinnegan. Sasuke silently gasped at the mention of a 10 tails. I thought the 9 tails was bad, but the 10 tails seems worse. He glanced back down at the book so he could finish reading the epilogue. the sage of 6 paths vanished from the ninja world after having many children and was never seen again. Legends say the 10 tails eventually consumed him and he split it into 9 parts before his death. Some cultist worshippers of the ancient beast claim that one day the 10 tails would return. None know how true the legend is, but it has been noted that the Uchiha and Senju clans are claimed to be descendants from the sage's bloodline, as well as the Senju's sister clan the Uzumaki. Sasuke nearly fell over at the last part. Uzumaki clan? Maybe that's why he was reading this. He must know more than he lets on. Still though, that doesn't explain why he would have this book, or why the Anbu didn't see it as useful evidence. Sasuke stared at the book for a long time after reading it. It was surprising to find an uncensored, original version of this story in Naruto's apartment, and surprising still to find out that he is part of a clan. Maybe I should ask Tsunade about this. He thought, trying to decide what to do. He wondered what the dangers of leaving a book like this in his home with Anbu stalking him and searching him all the time. I must inform Tsunade about this. It won't be safe to keep this book for long, but it'd be better she sees it, and not that prick, Danzo. Sasuke then held the book in his hand for a moment after deciding to bring it to Tsunade. I need some rest. Maybe tomorrow I'll see if Tsunade can explain more about the Uzumaki clan since she is one of the few surviving Senju. Sasuke thought as he began to fall asleep. Deep within the fox den, a certain orange-haired ninja was awaking from a terrible dream. He sat up quietly trying to review it in his head. The nightmares are getting worse, they are going to drive me insane if I can't make sense of them. He looked around at the small utopian lair of the Kyuubi, wishing he could stay forever. Why can't I just live here for the rest of my days? He questioned Kyuubi, who could only snarl in response. Well, there's one thing I forgot to tell you about this little den of mine. Unless you're constantly feeding it my chakra, the barrier is going to weaken and eventually dissipate. It is also consuming the chakra I left behind in it much faster than I expected. I guess the more powerful the individual, the more chakra it takes to conceal his presence. So you're saying this barrier of yours is going to break soon? Naruto asked, slightly worried at the thought. Yes, that is one problem. Another one is it will leave an amplified echo of chakra here once it falls, meaning that every Chunin or above ninja within 50 kilometers is going to come running for it. Plus, due its proximity to Takigakure, I'd advise against you allowing that to happen. Naruto sighed, annoyed that he didn't learn of this sooner. So what can we do about it then? Kyuubi growled at his question. It's falling as we speak. You have to destroy this place before it's discovered. The things I have here are too dangerous to leave for some idiot to discover. Naruto's eyes shot open. Shit, you could have warned me about this ahead of time. The fox merely sighed. I had no clue it would break after a few weeks. It must be your Rinnegan. Something that powerful is hard to conceal. So is it possible to redo the barrier? Kyuubi laughed. Not unless you feel like tearing off the seal to my cage. What should I do? Run? The Rinnegan wielder questioned, awaiting timely advice from Kyuubi. No, that would leave too many breadcrumbs for them to follow. I suggest you burn everything, cave in these walls, and hightail it out of here. Naruto did as he was told and began going through several hand seals. Kaden. Goryuka no Jutsu. Fire release. Great Dragon Fire. The entire area was set ablaze and reduced to ashes at an astonishingly quick rate. Your Rinnegan amplifies all elemental jutsu, making them much more powerful. Plus, if you get this clan seal of yours, you will be lethal. Kyuubi commented as Naruto was destroying the small valley. The walls began to cave in as Naruto walked back through the dark cavernous entrance, performing earth jutsus to cave it in as we went. He finally reached the entrance of the cave and kicked open the boulder blocking the exit. The barrier to the fox den faded quickly and finally unleashed some kind of energy blast as he walked out of the cave. This place will be surrounded soon, so I say you go back to Wave and try and find somewhere to lay low for a while. Won't they be able to follow me though? He asked out loud to the fox. Perhaps, but you need to learn how to conceal your chakra, otherwise there will be some political investigation on your tail. You're like a fucking beacon right now. How do I do that? Kyuubi, the fiery-haired ninja asked. Kyuubi's voice became calm and his demeanor passive. You must first suppress your emotions, breathe deeply and focus on your chakra. Feel it flowing around you and within your body. Now withdraw it slowly, allow it to return. Good, now focus it into a shell around your tenketsu points. Upon doing as Kyuubi requested, Naruto felt concentrated energy flowing tightly around his body's chakra points. I feel like my chakra could explode out of me at any second. The Jinchuriki thought as he relaxed and focused on repressing his emotions and his chakra. So long as you don't allow strong feelings of emotion to overwhelm your senses, then this technique will work well in concealing you from regular ninja. Still though, I doubt you'll be able to hide it from any S-class ninja. Plus the one downside is if you do unleash it, it'll be a nasty chakra spike for everyone within range. So doing such around any kind of ninja village is not a good thing. I'm going to Wave Country so I can acquire this clan seal of mine. Still though, what do I do if somebody recognizes my Rinnegan Kyuubi? The demon fox was silent for several minutes as Naruto began to leap through the trees running at high speed away from the scene of the crime. Well, that is unfortunately inevitable, but thankfully the people of Wave are all civilians. I'm sure you can stay there for a little while. I imagine Konoha's tracker teams already scoured the place for you and left. Naruto continued jumping through the trees at almost inhuman speed as he began to get nervous about being followed. Out of nowhere his Biju asked him a question. I have a question, what do you intend to do with your paths of pain? You never really gave me an answer from before. I didn't know you were asking me. Naruto replied, I don't think it's very humane to resurrect the dead to serve as my puppets. Kyuubi choked on his laughter as Naruto finished his mental sentence. Ha 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 ha, what? Not humane? And here I thought you were actually starting to become worthy as my container. Then you go off and say something like that. I don't intend on using that kind of power to disgrace the honored dead. You're not going to change my mind, Fox. Kyuubi's laughter finally began to die down as he tried to come up with a response. I don't understand you, Kit. One day you're some kind of angry monster of retribution mercilessly working to become powerful, and the next you are some self-righteous whiner complaining about your conscience. For fuck's sake. I won't do it, Kyuubi. Unless they have their own minds, it makes me some kind of sick puppet master, and that's not what I intend on being remembered for. The nine-tailed fox let out a super dramatic long sigh. What a fucking waste. Fine, there is a way to do as you said, though it is far less beneficial to you. You can use the Rinnegan's power to resurrect 6 people in total. What that does is it will create a chakra bond between you and the individuals you resurrect. Their lives are tied to yours, so if you die they all die as well. Thankfully, it doesn't work the other way around, though it does put a strain on your chakra. Naruto was intrigued by the information as he silently awaited the fox to continue. The chakra bonds you create with these individuals means that they are more powerful the closer they're to you, and vice versa. However, with this option, they regain their old minds and have free will. Also, you can't acquire their techniques or use them for additional fields of vision. Ultimately, it's a risky alternative because you can't directly control them. Naruto thought about this for a few minutes as he continued running. Do they have to be dead for me to create this chakra bond? The fox replied to his question casually. Yeah, they do. But you can kill people and resurrect them like that if you wanted, though I wouldn't do it to any of your enemies, otherwise they become more powerful and retain their same disposition from when you killed them. I am curious how you seem to know so much about the Rinnegan in general, Kyuubi, almost as if you have seen it before? Kyuubi roared violently in his cage. I knew the Sage of 6 Paths. He was the original Jinchuriki of the 10 Tails, as you know. All the Biju hate him and his descendants. Then why on earth are you helping me? He shouted at the fox, clearing distressed by Kyuubi's answer. Kyuubi quietly answered him, we are both bound to each other. You haven't been my first Jinchuriki, Kit, but you were the first with a seal designed to allow our interaction. I find myself intrigued that you are the only one of the sage's descendants to inherit his original bloodline. So I'm just an experiment is what you're saying? Naruto asked. The fox laughed at his question. That bluntly sums it up. I'm still trying to decide if you're even worth my time, but as long as I'm stuck in my cage, I don't really have anything better to do. Without another word, the Jinchuriki continued on to Wave. He was disturbed by Kyuubi's knowledge and involvement in everything. It all seemed a little too convenient, that the fox had what seemed to be a well-orchestrated plan that had been laid in front of him. He knew that ultimately he couldn't trust the 9 Tails, but for now the demon's aid was invaluable. Back at the recently demolished fox den, several Taki nin arrived at the scene investigating the disturbing chakra wave they felt several kilometers away. They looked around at the destroyed area in search of any clue about what happened. The leader of the group finally spoke up. My father needs to hear about this. One of the other nations must have been using this area as a command post to spy on Taki. Several of the Junin present nodded at their leader. One of the Junin rushed over to the group. What do you think happened here, Shibuki-sama? The leader known as Shibuki, who appeared to be a very young man, shrugged in modest confusion. I don't know, but I noticed that this place is covered in ashes. Whatever happened here, somebody must have destroyed it. Another Junin joined the conversation with vigorous curiosity. How could something have been here? Our scouts patrol this area regularly, somebody must have found it. So I suppose whoever was here torched the place and ran. Several nods of agreement went throughout the group. Shibuki sighed as he looked over the scene once again. You men secure the perimeter and keep stray passers away from the site. I'm going to report this situation to my father, maybe he knows what this is all about. The man known as Shibuki headed back to Taki with a grim look on his face. One of the other nations must be after the Seven Tails. If that's the case, then Fu is in danger. I'll have to assign guards to watch her in case anything happens. Unknown to all present, a freakish figure was watching them silently tear apart the scene. His face was divided down the middle, one side black and the other white. A strange plant maw covered most of his head. It slightly opened and the figure began to talk to itself, so the fox had a barrier. No wonder Itachi lost his trail. The figure had been present when Naruto escaped, but was ordered by Tobi to spy only. The figure began to speak to itself once again. Tobi-sama must be informed. The fox is more cunning than we could imagine. The figure silently melted into the tree it was on and disappeared. Morning graced Konoha once again as a raven-haired Uchiha made his way to the Hokage's office. He knew Tsunade would likely be defensive, but he had to know. As he walked through the door to the building, he made his way past a rather sluttish-looking secretary. She called out to him, Sasuke-kun, you're not allowed to see the Hokage unless you have an appointment. He merely looked at her for a moment and continued on his way, completely disregarding her comment. Wait, you're not allowed to? Sasuke turned around, glared at the woman full of killing intent. I suggest you sit down and let it be. The woman looked as if she was about to cry as he continued upstairs to the Hokage's office, ignoring everyone who acknowledged his presence. He finally reached the door and began to knock slowly. Come in. A loud familiar voice rang as he opened the door casually and closed it behind him. Ah, Sasuke? Is there something you needed? As you can see, I'm busy with mountains of paperwork and have a meeting with Suna later this afternoon, so make it quick. The Uchiha nodded as he bluntly stated, I want the truth. No watered-down bullshit stories you give to the rest of the village. Tsunade stood up with a fierce look on her face, rather appalled by Sasuke's demand. You are in no position to make demands of me, Sasuke, but I'll humor you for the moment. What are you asking about? The raven-haired genin stared at her silently for a moment, meeting her gaze in a dangerous staring contest. Tell me the truth about the Uzumaki clan. Are they really related to the Senju? Tsunade was caught completely off guard by Sasuke's question. How do you know about that? What did you find in Naruto's apartment? Sasuke's face remained stoic as he answered, it doesn't matter, I just want the truth. Seeing no way to salvage the situation, Tsunade finally sighed in defeat. Yes, they were our sister clan from Uzushiogakure. I am a descendant of both clans. My grandfather was the Shodai Hokage and my grandmother was Mito Uzumaki, who was the leader of the Uzumaki clan. Sasuke nodded at her answer and continued his interrogation, as one could call it. So that would mean that you are a distant relative of Naruto. Who were his parents? Tsunade. The Hokage couldn't believe that Sasuke was prying well-guarded secrets of Konoha from her directly. I can't tell him, but then again I can't not tell him. Otherwise he'll say the wrong thing to the wrong people. Who else have you told this to, Sasuke? Tsunade asked with a furious look on her face. Nobody, Hokage-sama. I just want clues as to why Naruto left the village. The Hokage sighed in relief as she sat back down in her chair. She turned away from him and looked out the window for a moment. What makes you think he left, Sasuke? The Uchiha walked over to her and placed the book on her desk. The Hokage stared at the name of the book in disbelief, Rikudo Sennin. Sasuke remained silent as she flipped through the book, briefly examining it. This is the original copy for Konoha. You're telling me you found this in Naruto's apartment? Sasuke nodded as the Hokage stood up and faced him again. Sasuke, I'm going to trust you with one of the biggest secrets in Konoha. You are forbidden to reveal this information to anybody or I'll kill you, do you understand? He bowed his head respectfully, much to the Hokage's surprise. She sighed as she began, the only reason I'm telling you is because you know too much already, and I would rather you know the truth now instead of later. Also consider it a favor for bringing this to me. You see, Naruto is a Jinchuriki, Sasuke. The raven-haired Uchiha cocked his head, raising an eyebrow. I haven't heard much about them, Tsunade-sama. But I do know that they contain Biju within them. The Hokage nodded in response to Sasuke. Yes, Naruto contains the nine-tailed fox within him. Sasuke's eyes shot open in horror. So that red chakra, it was the Kyuubi's? Sasuke sighed as he sat down in a nearby chair, placing his hands over his head before continuing. Then that red chakra, that can only mean one thing, that the fox is subtly influencing Naruto. The Uchiha remembered parts of their fight as he thought aloud. Naruto's eyes turned red. His body was covered in red chakra and I saw what looked like a tail. How did I not see it before? Tsunade sat down across from him and she folded her arms, narrowing her gaze. Yes, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. The fourth Hokage sealed the fox within Naruto after it attacked the village 14 years ago, but Naruto wasn't its first container. The other two were also part of the Uzumaki clan. My grandmother Mito Uzumaki, and Naruto's mother, Kushina. Sasuke looked confused at her comment. Kushina? Who's that? She was Naruto's mother? Tsunade quietly answered. Kushina was the fourth Hokage's wife, Sasuke. Sasuke gasped as the truth unraveled in his head. So he's the fourth Hokage's son? She nodded. Sasuke felt like he was about to throw up. He felt his stomach turn at the thought of how Konoha had mistreated the boy who was the son of their greatest hero. So that's why everybody hated him. Tsunade held her face down, staring at her desk as tears began to fall. You know the truth now, Sasuke. Please don't hate him for it. He worked so hard for this village and received nothing short of scorn and mockery in return. The Uchiha held his head down, feeling the contagious depression hit him. I'm sorry, Tsunade-sama. I just wanted to know the truth. Her eyes met his briefly before he looked down, trying to contain his emotions. He's all I have left in this world, Sasuke. The Uchiha nodded as he replied. He taught me that there was more to my life other than revenge against my brother. He was a worthy rival and a good friend. Tsunade sadly smiled at the thought of Sasuke still showing loyalty to his friend. I'm glad you see it that way, Sasuke. He's a good person. Sasuke nodded as he stared at the book sitting in front of the Hokage. I think you should read that book, Tsunade-sama. It talks a lot about the godlike hero that was the Rikudo Sennin. He must have drawn inspiration from it. She raised a confused glance at him as he elaborated. I think I know why he left. Now that I know about the fox, it all makes sense now. Tsunade stared at him, awaiting for the unveiling of his answer. After he defeated me in the Valley of the End, he carried me back to Konoha. What I didn't tell anybody is that I was awake some parts of his return trip and remember some of the things he said to me. He believed me to be unconscious the entire trip. Sasuke took a deep breath as Tsunade was leaning over the edge of her seat, waiting for him to finish. Naruto told me that he was angry at Konoha, angry at his family, angry at me. Tsunade looked horrified at this information. Angry at Konoha? That seems so unlike him. Sasuke continued, dreading her reaction at the rest of his information. He started spouting off about how he hated war and fighting. He said he was tired of the disrespect he received even from his closest friends, and the last part he made claims about how he was going to change the world. He sounded just like Itachi used to. Tsunade practically face vaulted at the information Sasuke had revealed to her. She stared at him, trying to say something, but the words never came. Finally Sasuke spoke. I don't know what that means to you, Tsunade, but I just thought you should know. She gave Sasuke an angry glare before giving him the motion to leave her office. She glanced at the paperwork on her desk once again and ignored it. As Sasuke left, she turned around and stared out the window once again. Naruto, why wasn't I there for you? Wherever you are, I just hope you're okay. A thought crossed her nostalgic mind as she sulked for a few minutes. Today's a good day for ramen. Our favorite golden orange-haired Jinchuriki once again saw the familiar bridge to Wave Country named after him. He thought about the bridge as he crossed it slowly, and the battle that had once been waged for it. Then the image of a pretty girl in a green outfit crossed his mind. Haku. He thought more about the battle with Haku and Zabuza and decided to visit their graves marked past the end of the bridge. Despite it being nighttime, Naruto found the lack of people around somewhat peculiar. The teenager knelt at the graves and whispered softly, "I'm sorry you two had to die so senselessly, I hope you found peace in death." A sick and twisted laugh began to echo in his mind. "My name is Naruto, I'm a whiny pussy who can't handle death." The fox mocked. "Fuck off Kyuubi, they didn't deserve their fate. They were the heroes in the end." The kitsune's laughter finally died down after laughing at his own joke for a few minutes. A thought crossed Naruto's mind as he looked at the graves again. "I could bring them back, they deserve a second chance." Naruto felt the familiar stinging feeling in his eyes as he continued to stare at the graves. He looked deeper past the surface of the ground and saw the faint outline of two bodies and small chakra imprints still flowing through their deceased bodies. The Rinnegan began to glow deeper as Naruto's vision began to swirl. He held out both of his hands and chakra visibly poured through the ground into their bodies. The ground tore open as the two bodies floated from their graves covered in visible blue chakra. The glow around their bodies turned their figures pure white for a moment before they were placed on the ground. Naruto watched his handiwork as the wounds on the two began to heal and color returned once more to their faces. After a few moments their eyes opened simultaneously. "You fool, you can only do that to 4 more people for the rest of your life. I'd have used it on somebody far more valuable than these two." Zabuza looked around for a moment trying to find out where he was. Last thing he remembered was dying slowly on a bridge, and then he looked to the graves right next to him and Haku. Haku looked at him for a moment with an equally shocked face. "Zabuza-sama, where are we?" she questioned. He shrugged for a moment until he noticed a black-clothed figure standing over him. "I know I didn't mention Naruto changing outfits, but who honestly cares? Just imagine him in whatever black outfit you would like, imagination goes further than whatever explanation I give you. And no, he's not wearing an Akatsuki robe, because I know somebody is going to ask that." He looked at the figure for a moment trying to make out his face until he noticed the eyes, the silvery purple eyes with rings that glowed as bright as the moon itself. Zabuza stared at the figure in disbelief. The Rinnegan? Haku also stared at the mysterious figure as he leaned over to them, getting closer. Haku saw the whisker marks that covered his face and knew immediately who it was, Naruto-kun. Zabuza tensed at the name. "You're the kid who defeated us on the bridge, you had the Rinnegan." Naruto broke the silence as the two uneasily sat up. "Yes. You two both died over 2 years ago. I brought you back." The pair stared at Naruto in utter disbelief. Zabuza stood up and questioned him, "Why would you bring us back? And for that matter, how?" Naruto ignored his question as he gave them an ultimatum. "You have 2 choices the way I see it. One, you can go on living the way you were before and die in some equally pointless way, or you can join my cause." Haku stared at Zabuza for a minute trying to understand his thought process. "What is your cause, Naruto-kun?" she questioned curiously. The Jinchuriki smiled at the pair as he replied, "To overthrow the cages and establish world domination." Quote, Zabuza could barely contain his joy as a smile washed over his face. "I had the same dream when I was younger. The council of Kirigakure had grown corrupt. After my friend Kisame killed the daimyo of Kiri, I decided to leave as well. It would bring me no honor greater than to serve your cause, Naruto-sama," the former demon of the mist exclaimed. He bowed to Naruto and Haku followed in turn. Naruto turned to Haku for a response. "Her opinion matters as well, Zabuza, what say you, Haku-chan?" The Ice Princess smiled at him and hugged him much to his and Zabuza's surprise. "I knew you were special from the day I met you. I will forever follow you, Naruto-sama." The two missing nin then stared at their leader, who was much different than they remembered. His hair is orange and he is much taller than he was before. He has a Rinnegan too. I can't even imagine how powerful that must make him. This must be some kind of divine miracle, Zabuza thought. Meanwhile, Haku's mind was heading in a different direction. He's beautiful, like a lost prince come to save his kingdom. He'll need a princess though. After a few moments of mind-wandering, Naruto broke the silence and explained the situation to them. "I'm a fugitive of Konoha. Probably near the top 5 or so on Konoha's bingo book. So if you two could try and avoid using my name publicly, that would help." They nodded briefly before a frown crossed Haku's face. "What should we call you?" Naruto wondered that himself for a moment as he stared at the two. Finally, he came up with an answer, call me Pain. The pair nodded as Naruto began to explain his current objective. I'm on my way to the ruins of Uzushiogakure to find the remnants of my clan. You two are covered in dirt and blood, so I suggest you clean up and find your gear. Do so quickly, then you are to meet me at the northern end of the island after you're finished. They nodded as Naruto headed off through the town. Zabuza felt the invincible feelings inside him wane as Naruto got further away from him. Finally he turned to Haku and the two had smiles on their faces. Can you believe it? I finally found something worth doing in life. With him leading this cause we'll be unstoppable. Zabuza cheered as if he had never been happier. Haku found his good mood refreshing and took the opportunity to ask him, do you know about the Rinnegan, Zabuza-sama? The man nodded his head, yes, I have heard of the Rinnegan, and what it is capable of. Haku raised an eyebrow at him and queried, what is it exactly? Zabuza laughed as he and Haku began to gather some of their old equipment from their graves. It's a dojutsu that belonged to the first ninja, and is said to be insanely powerful. Haku continued, do go on. Zabuza chuckled as he picked up his sword and his mask. He handed Haku her hunter mask as well. Zabuza gave Haku a guilty look as she stared into his eyes. Finally, he spoke his mind, I'm sorry for everything that's happened to us Haku, I promise you I won't let anything happen to you again. Haku stared shocked at her father-like figure for a few minutes before finally hugging him. All if forgiven, things will be better now. Zabuza returned her hug and proceeded to briefly explain the origins of the Rinnegan to Haku as the two wandered into town. Naruto walked through the town hoping to see some familiar faces, but unfortunately for him the town seemed empty. Something is wrong here, not a single villager yet. I know it's nighttime but still it seems too convenient. His paranoia seemed to prove accurate as he walked over to the home of Tazuna and upon a quick inspection noticed it was empty. I never liked him anyways, all self-righteous and whatnot. Shut up Fox. Naruto tuned out Kyuubi's commentary as he started to think about what could have happened. Hey, are you listening to me Kit? You'll most likely find them at your destination. This is some kind of trap if you haven't noticed by now. Obviously, I realized that Kyuubi. That must mean somebody knew I'd come here, and that leads me to think they took the villagers hostage. The Nine Tails grunted in response. Funny thing about traps is they are all double-edged swords. Maybe those two fools you brought back might be of use after all. This is a good opportunity to find out who these assassins are. Naruto groaned in disappointment knowing nothing was ever that simple. Somehow I doubt they are assassins. Deep inside the Temple of Whirling Tides a large group of hostages were all tied up along the circular walls of the Grand Dome Room. Large cries of panic and anger erupted amongst the crowd of people as two individuals walked into the room wearing black cloaks adorned with red clouds. The pair walked around the circular room examining their captured bait. It took me over 2 hours to tie all of these people up. This kid better be here soon, Kisame complained as he looked around the room annoyed. So Itachi-sama, you really think this will work? The fierce-looking shark nin asked his superior. Itachi looked around with a bored look on his face. Well, if our informant from Konoha is correct, the Nine Tails Jinchuriki is compassionate about protecting people, and I believe he would blindly rush in trying to save hostages. Kisame nodded at Itachi's response before asking, who is this informant of yours? Itachi had a slight smirk on his face as he looked over to Kisame. You'll never guess this right, so I'll spare you the trouble. Kisame had an eager look of anticipation waiting for Itachi to say the name. I won't mention it in front of all these people, so ask me later. Kisame started laughing. Wow, the suspense is killing me. How have these idiots in Konoha not found the informant yet? Itachi shrugged as he lost interest in the conversation. A young boy glaring at Kisame with intensity shouted loudly, don't talk about Konoha nin like that. They are welcomed heroes around here and can kick your butts. He stopped in front of the boy and stared him down. So boy, you think you're some kind of tough guy Kisame laughed as he towered over the child with a twisted smile. My name is Inari, and I'm not afraid of nothing or nobody. The boy's resolve attracted the attention of all present around him. Itachi turned around and stood next to Kisame with a slight frown on his face. You have so much to learn about the world, kid. Your parents should have taught you rule number 1 about a hostage situation. Don't be a hero. Kisame then backhanded the boy with enough force to send him into the wall. Inari hit the wall and lost consciousness as blood poured from his swollen mouth. Gasps of horror and shock filled the room once again as Kisame began to laugh. Itachi rolled his eyes with an uninterested look on his face. "How dare you do that to my grandson? I know people who can bring you to justice, you monsters," a man shouted from a short distance away. Kisami's grin broke into a dazzling chuckle as he took his sword off his back. "No, Kisame, ignore them. These people are feeble and weak, and their empty threats only veil their fear. Back to the matter at hand, when the Nine Tails arrives, you will need to drain its chakra while I subdue it with my Sharingan." Kisame re-equipped his sword as he shook his head. "He's only a genin, Itachi-sama. I doubt it'll be that hard to bring him down." Itachi's face lit up in frustration as he glared at Kisame. "Tobi told us not to mess up the plan. Our underestimating him was the problem to begin with, Kisame. Tobi says that it will be near impossible to defeat the Nine Tails without him if it has a full transformation." Kisame met Itachi's glare with a shrug. "I doubt that we'll reach that point. All we gotta do is knock the kid out in some genjutsu, drain his chakra, and haul him back to the meeting point." Itachi held his head dejectedly as he sighed. "At any rate, the hostages will eventually lure him here, and we can apprehend him then." Kisame nodded once again, halfway tuning out Itachi as he examined the temple. "So Itachi-sama, you said he's the last member of this clan?" The Uchiha glanced around for a moment, admiring the unique architecture, as he focused on the statue of a woman on the far wall. "Yes, it would seem so. I wouldn't doubt if he came here seeking his clan seal. Its origins are a mystery to even myself, but I heard that one must possess the bloodline to acquire it." Tazuna sat quietly listening to the conversation of his captors. The only clan that ever existed here was the Uzumaki, but who could they be talking about? He wondered as he searched his memory for clues. Suddenly a flashback hit him as he remembered a certain blonde-haired kid, Naruto. "I can't believe I didn't realize he was a remanent of the clan. I wonder if these two are trying to capture Naruto or somebody else though." As if he read Tazuna's mind, Kisame wandered over to Tazuna with another grin. "So, it looks like we have an eavesdropper over here, Itachi-sama. How would you like to go for a swim, old man?" Kisame practically giggled as horror swept through the large crowd of individuals. Suddenly a woman spoke up in a pleading tone. "We are simple people. Most of us here are fishermen, farmers, or carpenters, and we don't want anything to do with your shinobi politics or wars." Itachi walked to the woman's location with a massacre written on his face. "Everything you believe is a mockery of the truth. Safety is a lie, peace is an illusion, and hatred is eternal. As the seeds of corruption grow in the hearts of all people, wars shall always erupt in a never-ending cycle of damnation." The woman had a terrified look on her face as Itachi activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. "Look into my eyes and see the truth." The woman began to scream in pure terror as visions raced through her mind. "What are you doing to my daughter, Tsunami, you sick fuck?" Tazuna roared in rage before getting knocked down by Kisame. The woman finally fell over, practically half dead. Keyword half dead. She didn't die, as Itachi's eyes went back to normal. "So much for ignoring them, Itachi-sama. Shit, and you think I'm being too hard on them? That could qualify as torture." Kisame laughed as he and Itachi began to walk to the center of the room. Tazuna began to shout angrily at them. "You'll pay for this, I swear. My daughter didn't deserve that." Itachi simply disregarded the man as he said, "People like her are poison to their own societies. Encouraging weakness among each other only makes them more susceptible to violence and war. These people don't understand that strong nations don't care if they are weak civilians. They will trample those who are too weak to protect themselves." Kisame nodded at Itachi's logic. "Yeah, I suppose that's true in the long run. Those too weak to protect themselves shouldn't be around those who can. None of them understand the measures that are acceptable in war. The people present were all cowering with their faces down, not daring to look up at the two. So Itachi-sama, which one of the hostages is going to be the first sacrifice?" The Uchiha looked around with a disgusted look on his face. "No point in making martyrs out of any of them. I would prefer not to kill these people. Maybe this experience will make them stronger." Kisame gave the Uchiha a strange look. "You're too good for your own good, Itachi-sama." Suddenly a loud noise came from outside and drew the attention of all present. A large explosion blew the door open to the temple and a lone figure walked in. Kisame shot his gaze over to the commotion in excitement and looked upon the figure for a moment. Due to the darkness of the night he could only make out the shadowy outline of a spiky-haired individual. Itachi was staring at the figure as well. Suddenly the figure began to open its eyes as a silvery glow outlined in purple shot out of them. Kisami's jaw nearly hit the floor as he gasped in disbelief at the teenager walking into the room. The cold dark gaze of his eyes made Kisame feel uneasy as he looked over to Itachi for some kind of explanation. The Uchiha himself simply stared at the young man in complete shock. The Rinnegan, Kisame, why did you insist on jinxing us with this? The shark nin merely hung his jaw open as the figure walked closer to the two. Fuck my life. So, you two were clearly interested in finding me, might I ask why? Are you assassins perhaps, or do you want to capture me? Naruto asked as he stood across from the two Akatsuki nin in the center of the room. Itachi spoke up, we have been tracking you ever since you left Konoha, and have every intention of capturing you. Naruto glanced at the figure which strongly resembled Sasuke. The orange-haired nin smiled as he retorted, so you must be Itachi, Sasuke's brother. Am I right? And you are? He looked over to the shark nin as well, expecting some kind of introduction. Kisame frowned as he looked over to Itachi, waiting for Ike to attack. I am Kisame, a former swordsman of the mist. The Uchiha made a quick glance in his direction and he nodded. Kisame suddenly unwrapped his sword as he began to circle Naruto slowly. Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan activated soon after and he glared into Naruto's eyes. The young man found himself enveloped in an ocean of kunai slashing, stabbing, and cutting him as blood rained upon him. A large pair of red pinwheel eyes was all he could see as he looked up in a desperate attempt to identify where he was. His eyes began to sting painfully as he flew out of the kunai with red chakra surrounding him. Itachi's form came into focus as he attempted to subdue Naruto. Then the ocean of blades turned into fire that burned over his body. However, the fire soon changed into red chakra as the form of a fox attacked Itachi. He found himself locked in a prison of chakra as Naruto's vision began to glow brighter and bring him back to his senses as broke the vision Itachi had placed him in. Naruto broke free of Itachi's Sharingan and barely avoided the force of a large sword smashing down in front of him. He broke free Kisame, Itachi stated as the shark nin began to swing his sword in a flurry, attempting to hit the Rinnegan wielder. Yeah, no shit? Kisame replied, irritated. All hell broke loose as Kisame began assault as the Jinchuriki in a deathmatch. The orange-haired nin drew his kunai. The Uchiha watched Kisame and Naruto fight with an interest. The Jinchuriki moved with incredible speed, parrying and dodging all of the former Mist Nin's attacks. How the fuck is this guy so fast? Kisame yelled as rage coursed through him. Kisame began to take things more seriously as he went through hand seals, Sweden. Bakusu Shoha. Water release. Exploding water colliding wave. Suddenly a large wave of water erupted from Kisame's mouth as he blasted the room full of water. Naruto laughed as he went through a series of hand seals, Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Water release. Water dragon bullet technique. Suddenly a large dragon formed out of the water Kisame had created. It began to trash about in the temple, attacked Kisame with great speed. The former Mist Nin fought it back and dodged most of its attacks before absorbing it into his sword. The shark nin laughed as it blasted back from his sword and blew Naruto along with half of the temple out of the out with it. Kisame rode the crashing wave of water down to strike once again. Naruto quickly regained his composure as he dodged Kisame's overhead smash. The former Mist Nin began to swing his sword and a whirlwind and water started to gather around him. The vortex of water surrounded the two, making Kisame laugh. Try and escape now, kid. Samahata hungers for your chakra. Itachi watched intently as Kisame began to unleash one of his aces. Naruto panted as he avoided the relentless flurry of Kisame's sword. The shark nin's superhuman strength made it tiresome to counterattack his blows. A large vortex of water began to go faster and grow smaller. Naruto circled Kisame as the area they were in began to shrink, then limiting his room to dodge Kisame's attacks. Kisame laughed as water began to imprison them. Sweden. Goshuku Zame. 5 man-eating sharks. Suddenly Naruto felt the water's pressure suck him down as 5 large sharks made of chakra began to swim at him. He growled as his eyes once again burned in pain. He held up his hand, Shinra Tensei. The sharks collided with an unseen shield and were repelled away by an invisible blast, much to Kisami's surprise. Naruto shot out of the water like a bullet and felt the familiar red chakra envelop him as he stood at the water's surface facing Kisame and Itachi. The remaining front entrance of the temple was demolished, allowing some of the villagers to escape and free each other. Several tried to catch a glance at the fight, but only saw an ominous red glow beginning to radiate through a dense fog that had just appeared. The water began to freeze suddenly, confusing Kisame greatly as he noticed two figures standing next to Naruto upon the misty ice-covered surface. The shark nin halted his assault upon this sight and had a grim look on his face. Itachi-sama, apparently this guy has friends. The Uchiha tried to identify the two rescuers and noticed a slashed mist headband on one and a hunter nin mask on the other. He glacked over at Kisame, assuming the former mist nin knew their identities. Kisame took a closer look at the two newcomers with a surprised laugh. Zabuza. It can't be. I thought you were dead. The masked swordsman simply leered at him as he drew his blade and faced Kisame. Normally I'd be happy to see you, but I can't allow you to harm my master. Kisame frowned in disapproval. Your master? You would disregard all those years we spent killing together for this kid? Zabuza laughed as he drew his sword. We don't play for the same team anymore. Haku and I serve our lord, Pain, now. Kisami's face broke into a scowl. You always did like doing things the hard way. I figured one day I would eventually kill you. Zabuza, Haku, you two deal with Kisame. Itachi is mine. Naruto roared as the two nin began to assault Kisame mercilessly. Itachi and Naruto stared each other down once again as Kisame began to duel Zabuza in a fencing display of power and speed. The mighty blades crashed into each other, creating monstrous chakra spikes as water, ice and earth exploded everywhere. Suddenly Haku began to freeze the area around Kisame, rooting his feet in place, allowing Zabuza the upper hand to knock him off balance. Kisame began to go through several hand seals, Sweden, Bakusu Shoha. Water erupted from his mouth once again and it blasted at Zabuza but was immediately frozen. Mirrors of ice surrounded the two and Senbon needles rained into Kisami's back as he parried Zabuza's overpowering swing. Shit, I can't take him as long as that bitch is freezing all of my water attacks and shooting me in the back. Kisame thought as he glanced around at the icy mirrors. He tried to smash one but his sword was deflected by Zabuza's. Ice needles shot out of the mirrors from all angles at Kisame once again. He made a quick counterattack to block them but felt Zabuza's sword slash his back. The shark nin's body dissipated into a water clone as the real Kisame whirled his blade around, smashing several of the ice mirrors. Ice froze his entire body in place as he landed. Zabuza took the opportunity to continue his assault, leaving Kisame defenseless against the overhead cleave that cut down his chest. He channeled the chakra from his sword, quickly trying to regenerate as he glanced over to Itachi's battle. The Uchiha had a pissed look on his face as his Sharingan activated once again. Since you are too much trouble to defeat by any physical means, let's see how you deal with this. Itachi snapped. Black flames suddenly erupted around Naruto, constricting him in agonizing heat. He fell to his knees as the flames began to burn hotter. Amaterasu is more than sufficient to defeat you, Itachi stated with a dead serious look on his face. The ice around him instantly melted and he fell underwater. The black flames suppressed Naruto and his chakra as they continued to burn him into submission. He tried to hold his breath as he sank deeper into the water. The burning agony feels good, doesn't it? Turn your pain into rage. The Kyuubi roared with thundering anger in Naruto's mind as he felt a surge of adrenaline flow through him. The pain, it's unbearable. I don't think I can last much longer. Release all of your power from your chakra points now. Feel your power within. Unleash it with mine and dispel these flames. Naruto began to focus on his chakra points, which still suppressed most of his power. The Jinchuriki's vision began to go black as a supernova of chakra exploded from his body. Shinra Tensei. The force of the attack exploded violently, consuming the black flames and causing a massive tsunami of water to blast out of the water as Naruto flew out of it, blasting Itachi and the others back in the process. Naruto going Super Saiyan? Lol. JK, Kisame, Zabuza, and Haku halted their fight as they witnessed two chakra wings emerge from Naruto's back. He flew high into the air and a slit formed in his Rinnegan eyes as they began to glow red. Use your power to annihilate everything. Let my chakra feed your rage. Itachi and Kisame looked up in awe as Naruto began to channel his chakra. Suddenly Zabuza and Haku were covered in red chakra as well. Kisame had a look on his face that resembled a deer caught in the headlights as Zabuza smashed his sword into Kisame, sending him flying away with a large hole through his chest. The two nin turned their attention back skyward. Haku and Zabuza only stared at their leader as they felt his power surge. A strange echo was heard in Naruto's mind, Chibaku Tensei. Show them the true power of the Rinnegan. The Jinchuriki obeyed the voice without question, much to Kyuubi's confusion, Chibaku Tensei. Planetary devastation, heavenly body bursting from the earth. What are you doing? How do you know about that jutsu? Kyuubi roared in Naruto's mind. The teenager glared at Itachi and Kisame with killer intent. Suddenly everything began to rise from the ground, ripping the landscape apart. Water, earth and ice began to float towards Naruto, forming into a large ball. Pieces of the half-demolished temple rose as well. Kisame gave Itachi a desperate look as he got up and back away from Zabuza and Haku. The four missing nin felt themselves being sucked into the massive ball. They jumped down fast, trying to escape it. We are not equipped to take this guy down, Itachi-sama. I say we get the hell out of here. The Uchiha only nodded in shock as he and Kisame began to fear the large ball forming in the sky. The two began to run at inhuman speed away from the scene, but Naruto channeled his jutsu harder, trying to suck them back in. Painful rage burned in his blood as the ball began to grow. Haku and Zabuza were beginning to get higher and higher as well, much to their shock. Finally he was stopped by Haku. No, Naruto-kun, it's over, let them go for now. You're going to kill us. He looked at her face for a moment and sighed in relief as he felt his anger and his chakras slowly retreat, allowing two figures to escape into the distance. He finally released the jutsu, causing earth and water to rain down upon the devastated remnants of the battlefield. He soon returned to normal as he landed and was embraced into a hug by Haku. You had me worried, Naruto-kun. How? I don't understand how you did that. Answer me now. Naruto tuned the fox out as he focused his attention to his followers. Zabuza let out a breath he had been holding as the rest of the Naruto's jutsu finished raining down. Zabuza thought to himself about how powerful he felt when he was with Naruto. When he turned red, I felt all of my chakra replenish, despite it mostly being drained by Kisame's sword. And what the fuck was that shit he just did? Damn, with him leading us we can rule the world. Zabuza thought as he stared at his leader. Naruto finally regained his normal demeanor as he sat down against a large rock. So what did those guys want with me? He asked as he looked over to Zabuza. The masked swordsman thought for a moment. You know, I've heard of those two before, Naruto-sama. They're part of a terrorist organization known as Akatsuki. Naruto glanced over at Zabuza with a questioning look. Akatsuki? Well, I suggest we avoid them in the future. They all nodded in unison. Haku glanced at Naruto for a moment and sighed. These villagers are going to report this to Konoha. Maybe it would be a good idea to wear a mask, Naruto-kun. Thankfully for him, none of the villagers could make out his face in the dark temple earlier. He glanced over at the masked girl and nodded before focusing his attention to Zabuza. The masked swordsman looked at him for a minute before he sighed. I think I have a spare black mask. I suppose it would be a good idea to cover up your face. He began to sort through his personal belongings in a recently acquired pack and pulled out a mask similar to Kakashi's. Don't laugh at my cliché mask. Here you go, Naruto-sama. Excellent thinking, by the way, Haku. The girl nodded as she watched Naruto put on his mask. He laughed to himself at the thought of resembling his old sensei. Yeah, good idea, Haku-chan. It'll cover up my whisker marks, which will completely shroud my identity from them. Since I have a different hair color and eyes now, they won't notice. Zabuza looked around for a moment, lost in thought. Maybe we should get out of here before a platoon of Anbu show up and force us to butcher them. Naruto frowned for a moment as he looked at Zabuza. I still need my clan seal in that temple. Supposedly the scroll on how to do it is locked away in its main vault. Unanimous agreement echoed as they began to make their way back into the temple. Looks of distress and terror marked the faces of the villagers who noticed the trio emerging from the mist. They made their way back inside the half-demolished temple, avoiding looks they received from the terrified villagers. One man looked at Zabuza and almost started to cry, "By the gods! The demon of the mist has returned." Zabuza shot the man a death glare, making him back away swiftly. Naruto looked around at the people who all were staring at him. Many of them were cowering when he made eye contact. He looked around at the mostly freed villagers and spoke in deadly tone, "I suggest all of you leave before you die." Zabuza began to laugh as he chimed in, "Bow before pain and the demon of the mist." Many villagers present began to run away in fear as Haku let out a brief sigh at Zabuza's over-the-top ego. Naruto felt a small smile come to his face at the mention of his false name. As the remaining villagers all fled the temple, Naruto glanced at a statue of a woman. He walked closer to it and read the name on it, Mito Uzumaki. He looked at the statue for a moment, trying to identify who the woman was. He finally sighed as he walked away from it and down a hallway followed on each side by Zabuza and Haku. Naruto at last came to a dark corridor leading downstairs into a dark room. He picked up a torch on a nearby wall and set it on fire as they wandered further in. At the very back of the room, Naruto found a large chest with a super complicated lock on it. He handed the torch to Haku, who held it over for him. He read the inscription, "To open the chest, a true member must channel his chakra through the lock." The Jinchuriki laughed quietly about how simple something such as this would be. "Guess they figured nobody in the clan had any mind to steal it anyways," he thought as he began to open the chest. The locks undid themselves as his chakra flowed over the chest for several minutes. Finally the chest opened and Naruto began to examine its contents. Haku and Zabuza quietly watched him go through the several scrolls inside the chest as he searched for his clan seal. He found it after a few minutes and read the instructions. To place the clan seal on a member, one must first have a large chakra pool and have the clan bloodline to ensure survival, otherwise the seal is fatal. He laughed to himself at the thought of somebody like Orochimaru finding this and killing himself accidentally. Speaking of which, I still need to kill him at some point. The teen's mind sidetracked for a moment before he continued reading. The clan seal allows the user to weave chakra and temporarily augment their weapons of even bodies with it. The seal amplifies all elemental jutsu. To acquire the seal, one must unleash their chakra in the heart of the maelstrom outside of the temple. To prove one's worth, he or she must overpower nature itself. If they are deemed worthy, the gods shall bless them with the Uzumaki seal of ascendance. Below the instructions listed the names of every clan member to acquire the seal. Only 50 names were on it. No wonder nobody has heard of this seal. Naruto sighed as he reread the scroll before he finally placed it back inside the chest. He continued to search it for anything of value, and he finally found something very interesting. He pulled it out of the chest and stared at it. An Uzushiyogakure Hite Ite, Whirlpool Village headband, or something close to that. Naruto tied the forehead protector around his head and turned to his two followers. They both gave him an approving nod. He smiled underneath his mask before he spoke, "Guys, I am going for a swim." The two missing nin focused their attention on their leader and followed him as he began to walk up the stairs outside of the temple's back entrance. They looked down and saw a huge whirlpool at the base of the cliff edge the temple was on. Haku took off her mask and gave a worried look to Naruto as he began to take his gear off and his shirt. "Don't tell me you actually intend to go into that?" she gasped as he walked to the edge of the cliff. Zabuza sat down and took a deep breath as he and Haku only saw the faint orange blur of their leader diving into the whirlpool. "He knows what he's doing, Haku, he'll be okay." She gave him a concerned look before sitting down next to him. "I hope so." Meanwhile, Naruto had just landed in the freezing cold water and tried to get to the surface as his body spun out of control in the maelstrom. He focused his chakra into his feet and propelled himself upon the surface of the moving water and felt intense pressure as he attempted to walk to its center. Each step felt like it would suck him down to the seafloor. He slowly but surely made progress to the center, and upon finally reaching it he felt his entire body starting to crush from the force of the pressure. Haku and Zabuza saw an orange blur in the center from where they were and only gaped in wide wonder. "That guy never ceases to amaze me." Zabuza said as he intently watched the orange-haired shinobi channel his chakra at the center of the maelstrom. Haku stared at him and felt her heart throb. He's incredible. Naruto almost lost himself in his concentration to keep his chakra controlled as he focused harder. More poured out of his body as he channeled all of it into the whirling tide. The water surrounding him began to merge with his chakra and then glowed in a blinding display of power. Naruto got pulled down into the maelstrom of chakra and felt his entire body overcome by a strange tingling feeling. He felt the chakra in the water around him and began to alter its direction, reversing the flow of the whirlpool. After a full minute of rotating in its counter direction, the maelstrom was completely dissipated. Naruto emerged from it and ran up the cliff to meet his companions once more. They both looked at him in awe as they saw his skin glowing radiantly before finally returning to normal. "I got what I came for. Let's leave this place," the orange-haired teen spoke as he put his gear back on. "Explain to me how that got you a clan seal?" Haku asked as she intently watched him re-equip his gear. Naruto turned around and replied, "By mastering nature I created my own seal. This was some kind of test for all of the most powerful Uzumaki clan members. I didn't realize that we must each create our own seals until I did that for myself." Haku and Zabuza both looked over the edge of the cliff in shock that the whirlpool was gone. Zabuza looked at him for a moment as if he was about to say something but finally closed his mouth. Haku licked her lips as he motioned for them to follow him. "He's so powerful and in control all the time. Fuck, is that hot. Oh, the things I would do to you, Naruto-kun?" Haku thought as the trio silently began to leave the temple. Zabuza glanced over at Haku for a moment and smirked as he noticed the look on her face. "I bet she won't be the only woman who wants to have your kids." Zabuza laughed to himself as he looked over at his leader. Naruto heard the familiar growl in his mind as Kyuubi began to interrupt his thoughts. "Despite your lack of resolve, you have been impressing me lately, Kit. I have no idea how you did that jutsu earlier, maybe you have no idea either, but at any rate, you might just earn my respect one day." Naruto acknowledged Kyuubi's comment. "Like you said, with your power and mine, I'll be a god." The demon fox laughed in Naruto's mind in a chorus of delight as they continued. A long distance away in the forest, two cloaked men sat against a tree and stared at the sky. "Itachi-sama, explain to me how we just got our asses handed to us," Kisame whined as his body continued to regenerate from the wounds inflicted by Zabuza and Haku. The Uchiha simply stared at the moon, lost in thought. Kisame continued to rant, "Those two friends of his died over 2 years ago, Itachi-sama. I saw their graves when we arrived at that village. Something wasn't right about that. Zabuza was one of my closest friends back when I was tight with the 7 swordsmen of the mist. I had heard of the Rinnegan's power, but I never imagined it could do that." Itachi sulked in his depression as he responded to Kisame, "This is a worst-case scenario far beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And now he probably has his clan sealed too. We are not going to try fighting him again unless we have Madara-sama." Kisame nodded in agreement as he rested his head back against the tree trunk. "What was that jutsu he did that sucked everything in?" Itachi gazed into the distance as if he was half asleep. "That was one of the Rikudo Sennin's most powerful jutsus. There's no way I'm going against that again. Of course it was on a smaller scale, but the fact of the matter is he can do it as well. How in the world did you not know he had the Rinnegan, Itachi-sama? Weren't you tracking him?" Itachi thought about the question for a moment. "No, Kyuubi's Jinchuriki is named Naruto. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker marks according to our informant. He might have recently developed it, maybe that's how he eluded us before." Kisame frowned. "You said his name was Naruto? They referred to him as Pain. We might as well call him that too," Itachi said. Kisame gave him a questioning look and asked, "Why should we do that?" The Uchiha relied, "For the sake of covering his tracks, and our own for when the Konoha Anbu comes scouring this place 2 days from now." Silence passed for a few minutes before Itachi gave Kisame a brief glance and sighed. "I don't think Madara-sama will like to hear that the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki is a Rinnegan wielder who is the son of the 4th Hokage and the last descendant of one of the most powerful clans ever known." Kisame had a sad look on his face. "I have this strange feeling that we're going to go through disciplinary punishment for this." Itachi closed his eyes in distress at the thought of Madara making an example out of them in front of the rest of Akatsuki. "Well, let's get this over with, call him now Itachi-sama. Kisame groaned as Itachi went through several hand seals to alert their leader to show up. A shadow teleported directly in front of them and was silent as the one red eye shined through the swirled orange mask. Madara looked at Itachi and Kisame quietly awaiting their report. Madara-sama, we couldn't apprehend the Nine Tails. There was a certain complication involved. Itachi began as the figure continued to stare at him. We set a trap for him at the old temple in Wave. But we couldn't subdue him by any means. He broke free of my Mangekyo Sharingan and, well, we had a large battle that resulted in his friends showing up and us getting out. We weren't trying to kill him, but we got overwhelmed and had no choice but to retreat. The masked man continued to silently gaze at Itachi and he took off his mask. His ethereal face gave the two nin a look with curious interest. Finally he spoke, broke free from your Sharingan, care to elaborate, Itachi? The younger Uchiha sighed as he held his head down in submission once again. He has the Rinnegan, he outmaneuvered a lot of our techniques. After my Amaterasu failed to subdue him, he unleashed a surge of chakra and performed a Chibaku Tensai on us and we fled from him. Madara's eyes shot open and much to Itachi and Kisami's surprise he began to smile. It must have been beautiful. You two fools are very lucky to be alive. He must have spared you if you were able to outrun that jutsu. Madara was grinning as if he was the happiest man on the planet. Itachi and Kisame traded confused glances as Madara began to pace excitedly. I must meet him, what is his name? Itachi answered swiftly, his name is Pain. Madara laughed to himself, Pain? I can't wait to meet him. Kisame had a puzzled look on his face as Madara put his mask back on. You two leave the Nine Tails alone for the time being. I have great plans for him. By the way, Zetsu also told me that this Pain used a demonic barrier to elude you two the first time. So I suppose your incompetence wasn't to blame for that. Your new orders are to report to base so we can have a meeting with the others. I'll have Zetsu keep an eye on Pain in the meantime and report any of his movements to me. Kisame bluntly asked, what plans could you possibly have for somebody like that, Madara-sama? The Uchiha looked at Kisame and practically giggled as he replied, the Nine Tails sealed within a Rinnegan wielder. Makes me excited just thinking about it. Eventually our paths will cross and this Pain will kneel before me. And with his power subjugated to my will the stagnant shinobi nations shall tremble and fall as I become the herald to their annihilation and assume the throne of darkness. Madara disappeared after his speech, leaving a disturbed pair of missing nin who stared at each other for a full minute. Sometimes, I get this feeling that Madara-sama is slightly crazy, Kisame chuckled as Itachi began to frown. I wouldn't doubt it if Pain kills him. Kisame shot Itachi a surprised look. I wouldn't go around saying things like that, Itachi-sama. Otherwise he might impale me with my own sword and, fuck, I'd hate to think what he'd do to you. I think he has some homoerotic fantasies about you. Itachi laughed for the first time ever after Kisame finished his sentence. Yeah, I would prefer if he kept that directed elsewhere. Besides, I'm sure he's in love with Pain, judging by how excited he was. Kisame began to laugh hysterically. The Uchiha had a smirk on his face at the thought of it. Hey, well, at any rate, let's go back to base, Itachi chuckled as the two began to set off once again. Kisame looked at Itachi for a moment and a familiar question popped into his mind. Itachi-sama, you never told me the name of that informant from Konoha. The Uchiha thought for a moment and responded, oh yeah, I guess I didn't, she is the best infiltrator I've ever seen. Kisami's interest soared as he asked, who is she? Itachi looked at him and stopped walking for a moment and spoke, she is the Hokage's secretary, Shizune I think her name was. Kisame sighed sadly, I'm afraid I don't know her. Yeah, she is one of Madara-sama's agents. I didn't even know myself until I left Konoha something close to 7 years ago. Although she was barely into her teens back then, she had keen skill for information gathering. Apparently it was good enough to impress Madara-sama. Itachi's statement sated Kisami's curiosity as the pair continued onward in silence. In the peaceful city of Konoha, a certain raven-haired Uchiha was sitting at a ramen stand. Sasuke stared at his food as he had nostalgic flashbacks about his friend. This was his favorite place to eat, it's just not the same without him here. I guess I always took his friendship for granted. Sasuke's inner reflections were cut off by a young woman who spoke to him. You're Naruto's teammate, right? I haven't seen him around at all. Do you know where he's been? The auburn-haired daughter of the ramen stand owner was standing in front of him staring at him. Sasuke's depressed attitude only seemed to worsen upon her mentioning of Naruto. He's not in Konoha anymore. Sasuke trailed off. The girl's cheery face began to dampen into an equally depressed one as Sasuke's. She looked at him for a moment and asked, "Please, tell me what happened to him. My father and I care dearly for him." Sasuke raised an eyebrow staring at her and she broke eye contact looking away with a blush on her face. "I care for him dearly. But how could he ever care for me when all he would talk about was Sakura and yourself? Did he ever mention my name, Ayame, to you?" Sasuke's interest in the conversation brought him from his half-dead state as he replied to her, "Not specifically, but he said your ramen stand was one of his favorite places in the world and that he loved the people there." Ayame sighed sadly and then asked, "I need to know what happened to him. None of the other shinobi I ask will tell me a thing." The raven-haired boy let out a long deep sigh. "Well, you heard about me trying to leave Konoha, I suppose. I guess I can start from there if you want the real story and not the official council bullshit." The girl's full attention was focused on Sasuke as she stared at him waiting for him to begin. "I left Konoha. I won't go into the reasons why, but all you need to know is it was a personal matter. Naruto and several others from my age group were tasked to recover me. They encountered Orochimaru's sound nin along the way and that picked them off individually. Finally, when I reached the Valley of the End, Naruto had caught up with me." Ayame walked around the counter and sat next to Sasuke as he continued his story. "We had a terrible battle, and we used our full arsenals on each other in an attempt to defeat one another. In the end, I used my cursed seal and he used his power. We had a final standoff when I charged a Chidori and he channeled a Rasengan. When we collided in the center, I saw his eyes change into a silvery purple and he impaled me in the chest with his Rasengan." Ayame gasped at Sasuke's story and she cut in, "That's terrible. I heard rumors that he tried to kill you. Is that what they were talking about?" Sasuke nodded before he began again. "The council tried to use it as an excuse to demean his reputation further. I tried to kill him as well, but that's not the point. Anyways, when he carried me back, I was conscious for some of the time, and I heard him say things that would honestly shock most people." The ramen girl cringed as she thought about it. "What did he say?" Sasuke broke eye contact as he stared at the bowl in front of him. "He said he hated Konoha and almost everybody in it. He went on a rant about how they didn't deserve his loyalty and how even his closest friends, meaning me, Tsunade-sama, Sakura, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Iruka had veiled doubts about his potential. I don't believe that's true, but judging from his thought process at the time I believe he thought it was. The worst thing he said though was how he used to get beaten every birthday he had until the third Hokage made it stop. I used to think he was a happy fool, but now I see that it was a mask to his true feelings." Ayame gasped in horror at the thought of Naruto being beaten as a kid. Sasuke took a deep breath and continued, "I thought I knew true pain. When my clan was killed, I suffered the indignity of loneliness fueled by an insatiable hatred, but he's been alone his entire life. I learned later from Iruka that his progress had been derailed and sabotaged constantly to make him fail in the academy. I didn't learn of his true worth until he saved my life in Wave Country on our first C-rank mission that ended up becoming an A rank." Ayame held her head down in sorrow as she commented, "He's such a nice person, to think all of those terrible things happened to him, and there was barely anybody who tried to stop it." Sasuke looked at the girl who appeared to be holding back tears as he replied softly, "I passed out sometime before he brought me to the village and didn't wake up again until I got news from Tsunade-sama that he was missing. They all claimed that he was kidnapped by my brother Itachi, but I think he left." Ayame gazed at the wall flabbergasted for a moment as she processed all of the information. "Thanks for telling me, Sasuke-san. I think my father needs to hear this as well. Just leave the money on the counter." The girl got up and went into the kitchen behind the counter leaving Sasuke. The Uchiha finished his bowl of ramen and got up to leave. He walked around the corner and put his hands in his pockets as he looked down at the ground. Thoughts began to race through his mind once again as he wandered down the streets of Konoha. Naruto is gone. I suppose nothing will change that. Anyways, I wonder how long I'll have to wait before they let me go do missions again. I am so bored of this civilian crap. Out of nowhere, a certain masked Junin ran up to Sasuke and started to walk next to him. "What's up, Sasuke?" You look rather down. The Uchiha shrugged as he disregarded his sensei's observation. Well, I just thought that since you have all this free time, and I've been assigned to watch you all day, maybe we could continue into some more training. Sasuke's perked up at the mention of training as Kakashi continued. Anything beats wallowing in shame all day. Kakashi gave his one-eyed you smile and motioned for Sasuke to follow him as he headed off. Sasuke followed his sensei to their old training ground. Unknown to Sasuke, a certain purple-haired kunoichi had been listening to his entire conversation with Ayame. Anko held her eyes closed as she leaned against the wall. So that's why he left, I thought as much. I wonder if I'll ever see him again, she thought to herself as she wandered half-drunk home. The image of his face kept popping into her mind despite her attempts to block them out. Gah, why should I care if he left? Why can't I stop thinking about this, about him? She asked herself before arriving at her home. She opened her door and plopped on the couch and felt her head throb painfully. The way the villagers looked at him, almost like the way they look at me. Distrust, fear, and hatred are the only things I see in them. If I ever see him again, I'm leaving with him. Her mind wandered as she subconsciously admitted to herself the crush she had recently developed for Naruto. Ooh, the plot thickens. She drifted into unconsciousness as one word slipped from her mouth, Naruto-kun. At a discreet, unknown location, 9 Akatsuki members stood around in large dark cave facing an orange-masked individual. The figure began to speak. I declared myself the official leader of Akatsuki, over a year ago, for those of you who don't know. Any challenges to me for supremacy will result in your displacement of life. I called you all here for one sole purpose. That purpose is to tell you what our new objectives are. As most of you know, we've been tracking Biju and their containers lately. The only 2 Jinchuriki we know of are the 9-tailed and the 1-tailed beast's containers. I want all of you to pair off again and search for the others. Don't blow your cover. I want to identify the most protected and powerful ones so we can capture them early before the nations catch on to Akatsuki and our goals. A unanimous chorus sounded, yes, Tobi-sama. The swirl orange-masked man began to speak again. There is also a certain individual that you will all have to watch out for. Everyone's attention focused intently on Madara as he continued, a rogue nin by the name of Pain. Several looks of skepticism swept through the group as a familiar man known as Hidan with a triple-bladed scythe spoke up. We're supposed to be scared of some rogue ninja? I doubt he could take on any of us by ourselves, let alone in pairs. Madara looked at Hidan and laughed at him. He already defeated Itachi and Kisame. This rogue nin is the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails. Everybody present except Zetsu, Madara, and said individuals held their mouths open in shock as they looked over to Itachi and Kisame for confirmation. Kisame let out a super exaggerated sigh as he stated, yeah, he's one bad motherfucker. Itachi nodded as he added, he has the Rinnegan, he defeated us with one of the Rikudo Sennin's jutsus. Hidan gave a disbelieving look to Itachi as he smirked. I call bullshit on that one. You mean to tell me that somebody actually has the Rinnegan? And he defeated both of you? Kisame groaned in irritation. We weren't trying to kill him, but it was impossible to subdue him. And later he had friends show up halfway into our fight. The only problem is they had been dead for 2 years. The normally quiet Conan decided to enter the conversation. How have they been dead for 2 years? Who were they? Kisame gave her an irritated glance before answering. They were Zabuza the Demon of the Mist and his apprentice Haku. They died 2 years ago during some stupid bridge fight with some kids and the copy nin Kakashi. Conan raised an eyebrow at Kisame and she replied bluntly, you know an awful lot about them, I see. They must have been friends of yours at one point, I bet. The shark nin gave her a nasty death glare as he retorted angrily, keep your observations to yourself, you bitch. I was just saying that I found it odd how they were serving this guy, Pain, despite the fact that there were official reports of them dying. Deidara decided to join the argument and laughed, ladies, you're both pretty. They both turned to look at him coldly. Kakuzu plainly added, you're sure one to talk, Mr. Pretty boy art lover. The blonde-haired man shot Kakuzu a smirk as he began to sing, what can I say, I'm beautiful in every single way. Blank stares focused on the blonde, causing him to laugh to himself. Yeah, sorry I haven't blown anything up in a while. My artistic horizons have been hindered lately, so I've been a bit on edge. Everyone rolled their eyes and focused back on Madara. I just thought that you guys should know that failure is never tolerated, but since Itachi and Kisame faced a Rinnegan wielder who just so happened to be the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, I am letting it slide. Do not engage pain under any circumstances, do you understand me? A unanimous chorus of agreement sounded once again. Konan had a troubled look on her face and asked, "What do you intend to do with this pain? Because the way I see it, letting some powerful Jinchuriki run around and swing his dick into everyone's business unopposed seems foolhardy to me." Madara nodded his head in acknowledgement. "Yes, that is true, Konan. But eventually he will grow arrogant and seek us out, and I shall personally handle him." Itachi and Kisame traded quick smirks as Madara finished. "Okay, I'm assigning all of you specific jobs. Zetsu, you are going to watch Orochimaru full-time. Report all of his actions to me. Sasori and Deidara, I want you two to keep a close eye on the one-tailed beast's container. The cage, try to be discreet. Hidan and Kakuzu, you two go search Earth Country. Itachi and Kisame go search in Lightning Country. I will search in Water Country and several surrounding areas. Konan, you have two special tasks." The woman shot a confused look at her leader waiting for her assignment. "Konan, you're tasked with keeping an eye on Omegakure and Takigakure. Those two villages have been unsettling lately according to rumors. Kill their leaders and see if you can root out some information." The woman nodded. Madara finished. "You are all dismissed. We'll meet back in a few years whenever all 9 Jinchuriki have been identified, and every nation toured for final intel. When we meet again we'll organize a plan." Everyone filed out in their paired groups and split to the 4 winds. Konan started to head off before she felt Madara's presence behind her. "That was your official assignment. The other one is something I can trust only you with, Konan." The blue-haired Kunoichi turned around with a confused look on her young, beautiful face and raised an eyebrow. "What is it, Madara-sama?" He looked at her for a moment before answering. "I need you to go undercover and find out more about Pain. You may have to track him down or watch areas he is likely to cover. Zetsu won't be able to watch him much because I need him to keep an eye on Orochimaru in case the snake makes a wrong move." Konan gave Madara a disapproving look and huffed. "Why'd I have to do that?" Madara laughed as she scowled. "Because you were the one who was so concerned about him running free unchecked, plus I'm sure he wouldn't turn a pretty girl's help down." Konan glared at him for a moment before groaning in anger. Fine, I'll look into it. If I have time, but I don't really see a point in." She was interrupted by Madara. "Be perceptive, girl. Imagine how strong our cause would be if he joined us." Konan gasped at his statement. You want me to bring him to you? You would have him join our ranks? Do you really think he would surrender to our cause, after Itachi and Kisame tried to capture him?" Madara sighed as he began to pace around her. "You lack the foresight to understand my plan, Konan. For now you will do as you're told and keep an eye on those small western countries. In due time your path will cross with his and you'll know what to do." Madara disappeared without another word, leaving a blue-haired woman slightly irritated. She growled in frustration as she walked away and began to mock Madara. "Be perceptive, girl. You'll know what to do when the time comes. For fuck's sake, why does he have to make everything a puzzle or a riddle? I think I'll know what to do. Shove a kunai up your ass is what I'll do." The azure-haired beauty raged as she disappeared into the distance. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.